check out the new abnormality.
What's it washing in there?
Hi. Lobotomy Corporation is hard.
Oof. Oh
Trains are safe. My cat is alive. From the twisted minds at Project Moon comes a video game colloquially known by every YouTube Let's Player known to man, SCP Facility. A game with such a stupid difficulty curve, I had 3 heart attacks when I finally beat the monolith pineapple.
Oh, thank God. Oh my.
What I just said didn't happen, but man did it feel like it. In the game, you play as a manager ordering around these employees around a big, sprawling facility with a layout of an inverse Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life in Judaism. The goal of the game is simple. Collect as much energy as you can by working with these beings known as abnormalities. Abnormalities are monsters that have been extracted from the collective human subconscious. Very weird terminology that won't make much sense for a very long time. With this video, I want to do a couple things. Firstly, to be a sort of guide for new players because this game is actual agony. Secondly, to dig into all the deeper meanings behind everything like the names and kinda study the deep symbolism. And lastly, as a cry for help. I 100%ed this game, which cost me 173 hours of my life that I will never get back. With the only thing I could glean from the experience being hours and hours of psychiatric help. Lobotomy Corp, or L Corp, and its world and characters are also just all incredibly well written, and so let's jump into that. The world of L Corp consists of 26 districts, each of which being referred to as a wing, with each wing being governed by its own respective megacorporation. Each wing can be divided into 2 parts, the nest where the upper class and the VIPs live, and the back streets where those icky, disgusting poor people live. The back streets are low importance areas to the wings, and as such are completely covered in crimes and monsters that shan't be witnessed. Most people living in the back streets spend their entire lives working to pay for life in one of the nests, as nests, while heavily monitored and under the regulation of the wing it belongs to, is also billions of trillions times safer than the back streets due to being under direct protection of the wing. People of lower class fight tooth and nail to survive, and most end up failing, whereas people already high on the ladder never have to think or worry. Metaphor? Maybe. Your job as L Corp is to supply the energy necessary in order to keep the entire city running. When you start up a new game or the tutorial, you get a loading screen featuring this character, setting the stage for you, the manager. Angela is an android with the single most intelligent AI on the planet, perceiving time at 100 times slower than what a human could, also being completely unable to forget anything ever. She welcomes the manager dubbed X to Lobotomy Corp and teaches him how to not suck. She provides surveillance of the corporation and does dozens of high-skill jobs that aren't shown, leaving many people jobless. She's pretty warm and nice throughout these first few days, which is a facade. But we'll get to that. Hire an employee, wonder why it costs points to change their appearance, download the free change appearance mod, name them something obscene, and manage some monsters. This is the part where most of you will notice, yeah, this is just SCP. According to the director of Project Moon, Kim Ji-hoon, he liked the idea of the SCP Foundation, but found that there were no games where you managed the SCPs. With that gap in the market in mind, he wanted to make his own version of that with his own worldview in mind. So he created the company Project Moon on his 4th year in university, and at that time surrounded himself with 7 people to work on Lobotomy Corporation. Each of those people belonging on some kind of list because this game is downright malicious. The monsters, dubbed abnormalities, are immortal creatures that must be worked with in order to create enkephalin, an opioid peptide that my middle school janitor used to abuse before pulping us with a wet mop. He would then get fired for drinking on the job. When the manager completes the day, they'll be ranked on how many agents died and be rewarded with lob points, which you can spend to peel open a new hire's dome and remap their neurons into new skills. There will be bong abuse in this video, I'm warning you now. Asya is the layer of the facility that we start off with. Asya in Judaism representing the world of action. Here housing the control, information, training, and safety departments. Each department has its own leader called the Sephirot, with their name again reminiscent of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Malchut is the kingdom, the rule, the recognition of a divine presence. In the game, Malchut is named Malkuth, and is the control team captain. And it is on our first encounter with her that we learn that our employees are expendable and function as little more than a means to an end. An employee goes mad, she takes a sledgehammer to the back of their neck, all the while talking about how hard it was at first to dispose of these nuisances. How you, the manager, will soon be disposing of your own employees just like she is, and how you shouldn't feel bad if people die on the job. They signed up for it after all. This applied to me greatly. When I first began, I tried to keep every employee alive, sometimes restarting days when it wasn't necessary. By the end, I was quickscoping my dear beloved children like I was attending school in the free state of Colorado. That'll be the darkest joke in the video, maybe. Before leaving though, she imparts on you a mission. You're going to want to be every mission's little bitch because they give you fantastic rewards and are required to progress through the story. Some of them are easy, like completing the day quickly, while others are stupid, like having 8 people with justice over 100. By the way, guys, have I told any of you that I put 173 hours into this game before I got the true ending for the first time? There's a saying in life that all good things must be taken in moderation. Sunlight, for example. Sunlight is our primary source of vitamin D and is great for bone health, battling depression, and getting good sleep, among so many other things. What happens if you stay in the sunlight for too long? Uh-oh, skin cancer. Enjoy that, stupid. Or we could look at red meats, incredible source of iron, proteins, and tons of other vitamins and peptides that the human body loves to absorb to create energy and growth. Whoops, what's that? You ate 1 molecule more than your recommended
18
ounces per week? Enjoy the liver cancer, fuckhead. Lobotomy Corp has given me ovarian cancer, which is strange for 2 reasons. 1, I don't have those assets. And 2, the analogy was about good things that can give me cancer. But playing this game gave me 0 sense of joy or happiness. Just a constant reminder of the sad emptiness inside us all. Each character has their own sub-story to complete by doing their missions. In doing so, you can learn harsh truths and dark secrets about the company. For example, did you know that you can have Huggy Wuggy from hit Roblox indie game Cartwright into Poppy Playtime in your facility? This might result in a prison sentence. Maybe next the Stolen Concept team will rip off Project Moon. Now that would be interesting. Malkuth takes the day off and Angela apologizes to us for not informing us how L Corp resigns its employees. Following this with the most important analogy of the game, likening every person to an actor in a play, with you as the director. If someone fails to do their part correctly, the harmony will shatter. Malkuth then makes her return and mentions something, quote, creepier than the abnormalities. Entities unable to be contained, sometimes manifesting themselves in corridors. No matter how meticulous the plan is, we can't control the unknown. When they arrive, she feels like she's no longer herself, referring to ordeals. Ordeals are uncontrollable events that take place whenever the meltdown bar reaches its next level. But more on that later. Yesod is the foundation. The connection, the bridges that connect people. And here that's taken literally by being what connects not only Asia to Bria, but also 4 departments together. Yesod is the Sephira of the information team with horrific germophobia, refusing to expose even the tiniest bit of robot skin. Every last piece of data created by the company is stored at his department. Every observation log, managerial guideline, and work type is overseen by him. His second talk will probably be the first time you're exposed to Hod, who is a real dumb bitch. This character has a massive cult built around her. A cult which I'm a proud member of. The Hod mind must grow. Hod, who is a dumb bitch, is super sweet and takes special attention to the employees, being one of the only Sephiroth that actually care for their well-being. She's here now to chastise Yesod for letting a lot of people die. To which I have to say, again, it is only a human life. Literally, who cares? There's plenty of those. As long as My Hero Academia Rule 34 stays alive, anybody can perish. It doesn't matter. Hod in the Tree of Life is splendor, humility, and the ability to persevere. Here she operates the training team. Weirdly, upon seeing you, she asks if you're mad at her. Either this is because she's clumsy and sloppy and is prone to making mistakes, or a deeper story reason that I guess we'll find out later, Lamau. Midway through the conversation, a sacrificial pawn disguised as a valued employee named Tiffany talks about how she would have hung herself by now if not for Hod's unique desire to see her get better. Then valued employee, what do you mean she has a name? Leaves to her different department where we can only assume good things will happen to her. It's thanks to Hod that we the player get to see Lady Angela's indifferent cruelty, for the first time, irreparably demolishing Hod's employee wellness program and telling her how Tiffany from the other day committed toaster bath. Apparently, Hod's employee wellness program involved distributing enkephalin to the employees. Quick reminder, enkephalin is an opioid, a highly addictive drug. Angela then continues to stomp on Hod's idea of employee wellness into oblivion, as human death and suffering are needed to create enkephalin. This is a McDonald's, people. Put the fries in the bag. We would replace all of you with robots by now, but unfortunately, employee suffering is extremely profitable. Netzach is the source of conquest and the path of victory. It's the urge to get things done. A mystery to me, because this guy is lazy and tries to no-scope himself over the course of the game like 6 times. I guess the thing it could be symbolic for is how the green man wants to urgently get his life done. Hey, not on corporate hours, buddy. I still haven't done the billionaire thing where I take a rocket into space. Stealing resources from Africa is coming up soon, though. Netzach is depressed as hell and extremely resentful of his role as safety team leader. Not even remembering anything before he was given the role. Life is a prison. Enkephalin is the only escape from this hell that we call Hod. And of course, there wouldn't be any safety team if there was nothing to keep employees safe from. Let me introduce the abnormalities. Man, I'm dead. So this is the first abnormality in the game, so I'm gonna use it to also talk about stuff like work types and stats and ego too. The first and arguably least dangerous abnormality is known as one sin and hundreds of good deeds. Everything will devour, snuggle, or do an epic reference. And if it does none of those things, it makes your entire facility bald, which is arguably a million times worse. One sin is hard-coded into being the first guy you're ever given, and it is perfect for not killing your day one employees. And it's also the least likely to drive agents into sheer hysteria due to being so chill with all work types. Instinct work is done to satisfy an abnormality's physiological needs. Agents that perform this get increased fortitude or higher max health, something that will be necessary when it comes time to gently tell God to go home. Insight work is done to improve the abnormality's quality of life. Insight work does require your jelly bean to touch the abnormality though, which can sometimes have consequences. Agents that perform insight work train their prudence, leveling up their sanity cap and making them a lot smarter, making the sight of these imperceivable abominations slightly more tolerable. Attachment work is done to fulfill an abnormality's social needs. Agents will act as companions or even playmates to an abnormality. This work teaches an agent how to connect with abnormalities and trains their ability to carry out work quickly and efficiently. A high level of temperance is also needed for an employee to resist some abnormalities, traps, or pulls. Lastly, repression is unique because it seeks to do the opposite of all the other works. It keeps them hungry, it keeps them alone, it keeps them in pain, it keeps them in check. Not a lot of abnormalities are privy to repression, so justice is a little hard to train. Employees with high justice can enjoy the effects of better, more decisive decision making. They attack faster and move with more confidence and certainty. Certain abnormalities will respect a high level of justice, for example, the butterfly twink and the German man.
Why you say this?
The amount of training a nugget gets is relative to both the amount of positive enkephalin boxes and the risk level of the abnormality. Because the skull emoji is a pathetic little Zion, he's going to quickly get outclassed by something that has a little more bite. Upon the collection of enough positive enkephalin boxes and unlocking all the information, you're able to use those boxes to purchase skull emoji's ego. Ego is the identity of any one person, and in this game it stands for extermination of geometrical organ. These are extracted from abnormalities using technology and can be equipped on your indentured servants for when combat time rolls around. Some weapons have their own abnormality-specific special ability, skull emojis being a 5% chance to heal an agent's mental health by 10 on attack. Every abnormality has a chance to give something called an ego gift. When an agent is given a gift is entirely dependent on whether an abnormality vibes with their swag. If Skull Emoji enjoys their aura enough, they'll be given a crown of thorns, increasing their successful work rate with Skull Emoji. Easy guy, don't worry about it. Just don't tell him a lie, lest you be smitten. Wow, a tier list featuring my favorite 3-letter word. Just for warning you, this tier list will be 100% personal bias. Holy shrimp! If you thought every abnormality was going to be a horrifying eldritch abomination, then you're wrong. Some of them can be quite silly. How zany is it that a couple of shrimp individuals will drug you and kidnap you? The silliness in every abnormality is always a farce, and this little puppy dog will snap your bones to dust. Opened can of whale cheers is a vending machine surrounded by 2 shrimp men that can never hurt us all. Only send people on an awful voyage on the SS Cheapskate. They can now go search for their millionth dollar ever earned. Something paradoxical to me because I don't pay my employees. When you complete any work type with whale cheers, a can of soda pops out of the machine and your agent drinks that can. Instinct to Work nets you a cherry soda that'll heal 40% of an employee's health. Insight gives you a regular flavored soda that heals 40% of an employee's sanity. And the other 2 work types grant a grape soda that heals 30% of both health and sanity. What does regular flavored soda taste like? Don't ask me. I don't drink soda, only carbonated water with extra shrimp. This is all if you get a good or mediocre work result. If you get a bad work result, your employee will instead drink the dreaded opened can of whale cheers and get kidnapped. Yeah, that's right. These shrimps will abduct your employee, put them on this low effort drawing of a boat, and send them to who knows where. Yes, the lowest danger leveled abnormality in this game is capable of insta-killing your most powerful agents. In fact, the higher level your employee, the more likely they are to spike their drink. You can have the most unstoppable, well-equipped monster of an employee kill a god, and then 5 minutes later have that employee get fucking trafficked. Whale cheers is a reference to a Korean urban myth, stating that people go missing after drinking a sleeping pill-laced can of Welch grape juice, later to be put on a journey to sail the high seas. So let that be a lesson. Don't drink from unattended bottles of soda. Or better yet, don't drink Welch's grape juice. According to an unnamed employee while on the prowl for miladies, they ended up in a meeting in a different department. The leader of the department brought in dozens of cans of Welch cheers and everyone drank up. Next thing they know, they were in a boat. Instead of doing the usual kidnappy stuff that you'd think of when you hear abduction, this employee was offered some tasty ramen. The ship crew would train that employee in the art of sailing, pulling fish traps, filling bait boxes, repairing fishing nets, and cooking ramen. Till eventually, that employee decided on his own free will to become a member of the crew, living an undeniably much better life away from Lobotomy Corporation, where employee death is an unavoidable daily occurrence. If the story provided is anything to go off of, sipping the spiked soda is the best possible outcome for an agent working in this company, because it gets them away from a life of mental anguish and intense physical pain. But they didn't agree to vacation time when they signed up to work here, so we are not Prawn Really I Swear Incorporated can fuck off. They can krill themselves. Frequent visitors to the crustacean hydration station get drops of liquid carbonation all around their mouths, which is just disgusting because it looks like a 5 o'clock shadow. For that, you go in shrimp tier. The Fairy Festival is a big fairy mama with little fairy babies. Why does mama have bloody fingers? Who's to say, really? Upon a successful or mediocre work result, the fairies will gift the working agent with their fairies' care. A magical site where the fairies surround a person, providing constant healing for 8 seconds. How whimsical. But remember the rules. Everything in this facility is a bloodthirsty monster. The fairies will provide the target of their care with constant healing as long as they aren't assigned to a different abnormalities containment unit. If this is the case, the fairies will quickly feast on your nugget and fly home to digest. It is thought by most employees that only those that are kind-hearted and good-natured will receive the fairies' care, not knowing that in reality, when a group of fairies gather around an individual, that's a sign they want to eat them. According to a document made accessible only to level 4 or higher employees, a man named Walter went under the fairy's care and was found dead inside the room of another abnormality. His face and stomach were all missing. Strange, because the abnormality that he was in the room of only inflicted psychological attacks. Meanwhile, the fairies had some blood and flesh smeared all over their mouths. The researchers came to the conclusion that fairies are carnivorous monsters, with the fairies' care simply being a method to keep the meat fresh. If an employee attempts to enter the containment unit of another abnormality, they gobble them up in fear of losing the food to something else. The low-leveled employees adored the fairies though, and because it helped with their morale and reduced their accident rate, it was deemed unnecessary to tell them the truth. Don't press the button. No matter what you do not touch it. You want to know what happens if you order work to be done on it? Everyone dies or everybody loses their mind. Same story if you even scroll past it. You can't even click on the thing's name. If you do that, absolutely everything that could go wrong will go wrong, draining every Qlifoth counter of every abnormality to 0 at the same time. Everything that can break out will break out. Oh wait, I haven't mentioned Qlifoth counters yet. Every abnormality has a Qlifoth counter that you can see here. Some are stationary and some go up and down depending on multiple factors, such as work results, people dying in the facility, people living in the facility. Your job is to simultaneously extract enkephalin and make sure this counter never reaches 0. What happens if it reaches 0? Bad things. Bad things happen. It can be prevented though by taking care of an abnormality's needs. Maybe sacrificing a person or two. In the top left corner, you can see the Qliphotht meltdown gauge. This thing basically counts the amount of times an abnormality is worked with in a day, and when that bar fills up, Qliphotht meltdown. Certain abnormalities will get a little pissy, these abnormalities being marked by the red box and having to be worked with by the time this timer ends. If they aren't worked with, their Qliphotht counter will immediately drop to 0, and they will either escape or use their special ability. TLDR, don't let it hit 0. So you can see now why it's a problem when every single Qliphotht counter in the building simultaneously drops to 0. To compound with this chicanery, sometimes Don't Touch Me will pretend to be another abnormality. So what you think is a lovable, huggable teddy bear is actually a retried day. You can tell if Don't Touch Me is pulling a fast one because the name will always be Don't Touch Me. Even on the deployment screen before you start the day, you can interact with it and it destroys your computer before crashing the game. I must touch. I know what you're thinking. Man, this YouTube guy is probably feeling the effects of male pattern baldness. Anyways, here's an abnormality that makes me and my people feel very represented. You're bald. You're bald is an orb that's come to sing the praises about the wonderful world of hairlessness. Its liked works are nothing unless you're bald. And if an employee with hair shows up and interacts with it, wow, so much better. Because of this, I wanted to see what Kuluyaku looked like bald, so I opened up Photoshop and made this. I'm bald because I don't have hair. We're getting off track here, so let's start over. Your bald is a messenger, here to spread the word of bald, and won't stop until every last person on earth has no hair. Upon contact with a hair-having individual, he will spread his gospel and speak into their minds, that truth causing a blinding flash of light straight off of their newly smooth dome. Your bald will then change his form, the orb itself now appearing to be thinning, as a lesser man would call it. Upon contact with a second hair-having individual, the word of bald will resonate through the halls, blessing all who hear it in the splendiferous white light of truth. May truth be found in their minds and hearts, in the same way that it's reflecting off of their heads. Your bald has now leveled up to his max potential, being completely, utterly bald. It brings a tear to my eye, it really does. Upon contact with a third hair-having individual, a holy light will shine, filling the hearts and souls of all, making every employee facility-wide bald, freeing them from these earthly follicle chains. It was a wondrous moment. After seeing this, I ran to the bathroom mirror and gazed into it to see if I too had been blessed with this gift. But whoa, clinging to my head were the same sparse, isolated, lonely strands that were there before. Life is a prison, and here I lay trapped behind bars not of steel, but of keratin. Warning, you have been hit by the baldy bald psychological attack. If a non-bald person reads this, they'll be granted the privilege to go bald at an extremely rapid rate. If one wants to stop this from happening, they must be assigned to work on this abnormality. In addition, if you find 10 or more strands of hair on your pillow in the morning, it is recommended to peruse this encyclopedia article at least 3 times. Now, this next part may be extra disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. The following account was taken between 2 employees.
Dude, I had an amazing dream today.
Can I talk now? Yes, you can talk now.
What? Did you win the lottery or something? You stupid, bald fucking idiot.
Okay, so when I got to work, everyone here was bald. Everyone including you. Maybe even people outside of this corporation.
You know, I do think you've been pretty stressed lately. Why don't you, go see counseling and maybe get a hair transplant?
Dude, counseling, yeah, right. Dude, I don't need any counseling. Wait, what's that sound? Oh, hey, neighbor. Right after this tragic incident, abnormality Bald is Awesome appeared in the facility. May you forever rest in peace, Bald Bill. If someone ever comes into contact with this abnormality, they will talk or write about the positive aspects of baldness for about an hour, and ultimately make themselves go bald. These writings being pretty hard to argue with. Unrelated. Hey guys, did you know that if you become bald, you can save time because you don't have to wash and dry your hair anymore, allowing you to be richer than others? Did you know bald people can even reflect light off their head and blind their opponents like a solar flare? We won't need light bulbs in our facility if there are more bald employees, because light reflects off of their heads. This will also allow us to save a tremendous amount of our budget. Thank you. Bald is awesome. Which is my transition of choice to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Manscaped. Do you want to be just like your favorite lustrous, hairless video game orb? Now you can, if you just use this incredible recently extracted equipment called the Manscaped 5.0 Performance Package. My favorite thing from this package is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. But wanting to show this product in action as a faceless YouTuber came with a unique challenge. At first I thought to maintain anonymity, I could simply record someone else using it, but my only volunteers couldn't speak, and I'm pretty sure that would constitute animal abuse, or some other silly law. So instead, I went through with my second rational idea, shaving up my arm. My favorite aspect of this thing is just how skin safe it is. I've gone through plenty of razors and electric shavers, and every one of those left at least one little cut or ingrown hair. But with this thing, I have yet to damage my skin. Look at the shaved area of my arm, look how clean it is. That's just the razor though. It also comes with a nose hair trimmer, 2 bottles of lotion, and some free gifts like a travel bag and some boxers. Use my promo code PakPak for 20% off and free international shipping. We Can Change Anything. After the popularity of the all-around helper skyrocketed, We Can Change Anything was released as the second installment of XX Inc.'s Home Robot series. As to be expected of all XX Inc.'s products, it sports a variety of functions. It's quite simple. Just open up the machine, step inside, and press the button to make it shut. Now everything will be just fine. We Can Change Anything is a tool type abnormality. Every fourth abnormality will be a usable tool that has different effects which, if used correctly, usually have positive benefits for your facility. We Can Change Anything is one example of these. An Iron Maiden. Clamping your nugget and training them of their entire life force until there's nothing left. But on the plus side, you'll get an increasingly huge amounts of PA boxes. As time goes on inside We Can Change Anything, the amount of red damage it does increases and it goes a lot faster, ending in a brutal demise. Smart players can game the system in a few ways. For example, say you have a separate damage transference abnormality. Then say you have an abnormality that keeps an agent alive no matter what. Are you following me here? While it isn't foolproof and eventually the nugget in the machine pops, you can break the game design and instantly get 500 positive PE boxes in a day. Now, am I recommending this strategy? Yeah, Send level 5 fortitude fodder straight to the penis explosion chamber and watch as all your dreams are brought to life without having to do really anything. Thank you, XX Inc. Mirror of Adjustment is another tool abnormality and one that has very, very niche usage. This thing takes an employee's stats and randomly redistributes them. So if you take an employee with level 5 Fortitude and level 1 Temperance, gazing into the mirror could shift it so that the employee has level 2 Fortitude and level 5 Temperance. I don't use this abnormality much, really, ever. It would be nice to continuously reroll for an infinitum, but if an employee uses the mirror once, then comes back to it, on the second look, the mirror will readjust their stats but lower the overall stat values total. So you could end up de-leveling your guys if you forget that they used the mirror earlier in the day. There are some very specific uses that I can think of, those being this. Some abnormalities will get upset at a high level in a stat. To counteract this, you can re-roll that stat to go somewhere else, so that your agent will be safe when interacting with that abnormality. Another practical use is to level up justice. When you hire a new employee or strengthen a new employee, leveling their justice is exorbitantly more costly than the other stats, being 3 times the cost. So to counteract this, you could put those points you would have spent on justice into other skills, then hit the mirror and watch as it dumps some of those points into the hardest stat to level. Enjoy your movement speed. According to the one studying the mirror, those that face themselves in the mirror are changed in some way. It won't be obvious at first, but they were. It's theorized that looking into the mirror has you switch places with an alternate reality version of yourself. Repeated looks eating away at your humanity until you are nothing more than a reaction streamer. I never use this thing, but there are people that get a lot of use out of it, so it's cool.
Aw, dang it.
I love gambling. One day I'm gonna give my son 3 times his college savings that I earned through gambling. What's this? An abnormality based on gambling? Finally, I can be my true self. Take my legendary ego weapon and increase its attack power. That would be so handsome of you. Who knew the gambling abnormality would be classified as trauma? It's as simple as this. You put your weapon into the orb, and it may return you with a stat boost. Elsewise, it gets devoured whole, costing PE boxes as you spin the wheel. Every subsequent spin increasing the damage more and more, increasing the PE box expenditure and decreasing your chance of success as it goes. You could roll for a full-on doubling of your attack damage, but the chance of that happening are 1 in 4, and if you lose a weapon, then even retrying the day won't get it back. Gambling is nothing more than faith in a promise, a misguided notion that will only leave us feeling hollow and betrayed. Those that try without high expectations, though, can sometimes be met with a pleasant reward. The damage boost doesn't even last from day to day, so I don't bother. Just don't bother. Who cares? Incredibly brave take coming up here. Gambling is bad. You Must Be Happy is the biggest homie of them all. This thing lets you manage your employees' stats better than anything else, and before you ask, yes, it still can insta-kill. Come on guys, let's just all assume that that's a baseline in this game. Everything can insta-kill, unless I say otherwise. There is slight luck to it, but it's so much more controllable than the mirror or the jigsaw puzzle snake. Want to increase your agent's stats? Have them step into the machine. The machine will then continually flash the words yes and no on screen. Ending on yes will give your employee stat boosts that increase with the amount of time that they spend inside the machine. While ending on a no will have the exact opposite effect and just strip them of everything they have going for them. It's not always bad though, but being able to land on a no and reduce their stats can sometimes be a huge advantage. Say there's an abnormality in the game that will kill an employee with 5 fortitude. That's annoying as balls. What if we decrease their fortitude level so that work can be carried out just fine with this abnormality? But oh no, the employee that I spent so much time leveling up is now low leveled. Idiot, why did you tell me to do this? Not to worry, honey bun. Any stat change made by You Must Be Happy, it disappears at the end of the day. Your employee will be right back in tip-top shape at the end. You're welcome. Now let's get into some of the drawbacks of You Must Be Happy. Having one employee use the machine more than 4 times a day will make them go pop. And they gave the machine cheese immunity by automatically stopping it while you stop time. As far as I'm concerned, these drawbacks don't exist, and You Must Be Happy is a more easily usable mirror of adjustment. According to the observation logs, the machine coerces people into answering yes to the question, do you love your city? People that answer no face dire consequences. You Must Be Happy is the biggest homie because it makes a certain boss fight later in the game tolerable. It's also always a huge treat opening up the start of the day and seeing the machine scream no at me through its character portrait, so that's cool. The Plague Doctor is the safest and kindest abnormality. He responds positively to all work types and freely grants a blessing upon a good or even bad work result with a broken array of benefits. Hey Max Design Pro, go talk to the Plague Doctor and tell your 11 flesh clones to do the same. And Harry. The Plague Doctor came to the facility on its own volition, claiming that the world has contracted a dreadful disease. A disease which can only be cured by him. Sound familiar? Didn't think so. Despite that comparison, the Plague Doctor exhibits absolutely zero signs of aggression, treating employees that are injured or sick, showing nothing but empathy and benevolence even after weeks of observation. When an employee named Alex walked in with a fresh scar, the following interaction was observed.
Why have you not treated that scar?
I booted up Skyrim with at least 800 sex mods. My gaming laptop instantly exploded when it tried to render Jarl Balgriff's massive Balgriffs, and the shrapnel pierced my cerebellum. I'm too embarrassed to admit to Reddit that I play video games on a school-issued Chromebook. Please help.
You use Reddit. Cringe. You are coming with me.
Whoa, my body is healed, and I'm ripped as hell. What did you do?
Simple. I deleted Reddit off your phone.
Wow, thanks, Doc. I'm gonna go sex my hot wife now.
And just like that, another soul that found their way. It will not stop at you, Alex. I shall heal the rest of them. I shall cure the world of this dreadful disease. I must cover more sheep in the safety of my wings, to cover them from the unholy blight shining down from above. I must cleanse the world.
Everyone loves him. He treats the poor and tends to the sick. He's like the Messiah. We'll come back to this guy. 1.76 megahertz is an abnormality with no shape or form, just a sound that can be heard in the rooms that it possesses. This sound assaulting the listener's minds with a besiegement of subliminal messages. a recording taken straight from early 2010s featuring all 4 horsemen of early YouTube. A maddening dose of lethal cringe. Also, this is an aside, but while writing this, I got curious to see how Fred is doing, and as it turns out, he's rebranded to Lucas and is actually doing great on YouTube. I don't know why, that just makes me feel happy. The fruit, on the other hand, wholesome maturation of early YouTube pioneers aside, you don't exist. 1.76 megahertz makes its presence known by the static overlay showing through on your camera, distorting things and playing a high-frequency sound. A sound that upon hearing will cause all employees to experience hallucinations and become hostile. After adjusting a radio's frequency to 1.76 megahertz, employees could hear a distressed voice followed by a bunch of explosions. After bearing witness to the sounds, everyone that listened all of a sudden started beating the shit out of each other. This is the first guy that caused an employee of mine to have a mental breakdown. When an employee loses their mind because they took too much white or black damage, they'll go crazy. They might go on a murdering spree, commit suicide, run around screaming, freaking out other employees, this one's annoying as hell, and commit sabotage, trying to break out as many abnormalities as possible. If an employee panics, don't worry, simply have another employee that does white damage attack the panicking employee, because it'll heal them and everything will be perfectly fine. Unless they're not an essential worker, in which case I would just shoot them, because who cares? When 1.76 megahertz breaks out, it'll spread to other rooms until you repress it back to 4. Anyways, 1.76 megahertz I don't really care about. Beauty and the breast brings me so much physical pain to look at, it is unbearable. This creature is an amalgam beast featuring a human mouth with the juiciest pink lips I've ever seen. Despite its grotesque, please put me out of my misery look and attitude, this thing doesn't escape and has no Qlifoth counter and is actually super chill. Until you repress his dumbass. When you do that, he'll start moaning and acting ill. Until he's either worked with again, where he'll chill again, or he's repressed again, where the creature will die and your agent will become a new instance of the creature. If you don't want your precious wage slave to suffer this hideous self-loathing fate, worse than death, not any more than they're already going through, don't repress it when it's in distress. Do some other work to pick it back up and then repress the fuck out of it again. In the story of Beauty and the Beast, a poor lady goes to a manor for some Gucci slides, knowing full well that anyone who dares to enter this manor is never seen ever again. Brandishing a knife, she decided she would go poke the count so she could steal his valuables. After entering the count's room, she discovered this hideous, self-loathing, disgusting creature that wanted to kill itself more than we want to kill it. So out of pity, she did just that. And then she transformed into it, propagating a cycle of killing the beast to transferring the beast's form to killing the beast and so on and so forth. Rumor says anyone who dares to enter the Count's manor is never seen again. The lady's favorite flower was the dahlia, and you could see that everywhere through the beast and its ego. I hate it, because to me it looks like some kind of gross, fleshy growth. This abnormality is one of the most low maintenance dudes possible, but it makes me puke every time I see it, and because of that, I never want it. Again, this being a tier list about just my personal opinion. Logically, he'd be high tier, or high mid tier at the very least, but like, look at him. 8-ball. Behavior adjustment is another tool abnormality, a floating 8-ball in a tube-looking thing. Its use? Those who pick it up will, as long as they're holding it, attack faster, but lose some sanity points in return. Sacrificing sanity for justice. If someone loses all their SP or returns the device in less than 30 seconds after picking it up, they die a gruesome death. Actually, me watching the new Minecraft movie trailer. Here's a use case that I found while playing. This abnormality hates justice level 3, but likes justice level 4. And I wanted to level an agent's justice past level 3. So I had them pick up the 8-ball to increase their justice to 4, did the work, and then enjoyed the fruits of my labors at the end of the day. That is a very specific, extremely niche use case that could have been done better by the happiness machine anyways. You have it in you to be a good and righteous person. You don't need a magic 8-ball yo-yo to do it for you. Who put Bloodbath in the Bloodbath? Bloodbath is about as edgy an abnormality as you can get, with themes of self-harm and stuff like that, all the good stuff. It's also one of the few abnormalities that are directly correlated to the lore of Lobotomy Corporation. If you want to know how that is, come back in like 1 hour. Bloodbath is a bath, and there's blood. I eternally regret not realizing to ask her why she needed that industrial knife. I eternally regret not realizing that she was hiding her wrists with long sleeves. I eternally regret not realizing that she always took extra care to hide them whenever I spoke to her. I eternally regret not realizing that I never heard her cheerful laughter anymore, and that she roamed around the company with lifeless eyes more and more often. The bloodbath is a test for your weaker-willed employees. Any temperance or fortitude level 1 employees will willingly be grabbed by an arm and drowned in despair, killing them, followed by an exsanguinated hand floating up to the top. The more hands floating in the bath, the more positive enkephalin boxes it produces. This is not a worthwhile exchange, not even a little bit, because you only get one extra P box per hand, so no. Now I haven't explained it yet, but while enkephalin is the energy supply in positive enkephalin boxes, enkephalin is also generated by the human brain internally to block the transmission of pain signals. When you get a PE box from an abnormality, you in reality could be extracting their body's response to trauma. Every abnormality has or is dealing with trauma or some form of mental or physical anguish in some way. A lot of abnormalities are human, were once human, or are possessed by humans, which lends credence to the idea that we are, in a way, extracting the suffering of the most unfortunate souls just to meet the insatiable energy demands of the mega corporations. In other words, Lobotomy Corp is a poorly disguised Amazon warehouse. It makes sense then that we gain more enkephalin as more people succumb to the tubby time terror, because there's more enkephalin to harvest. Also, if there are 3 hands in the tub, the next person that walks in, no matter what their skills are, they'll get nabbed. This abnormality loves all types of work except for repression. Repression, I assume, being the equivalent of going up to a depressed person and looking them in the eye and saying, haha, get over it. So yeah, edgy bathtub. I hope they named the ego equipment something tactful like wrist cutter. Well, that was long-winded and heavy. Will the topics get any lighter after this? Maybe. Crumbling armor is a samurai armor with a negative luck stat. Every single general to ever wear it died in goofy strokes of bad luck, like an arrow piercing an opening or slipping off your horse in retreat and bumping your head on a rock. Eventually, the pristine set of armor found itself in the hands of a new warrior that elected to never use it, instead keeping it in storage. After participating in dozens of wars without sustaining a single injury, this warrior died of old age. While under the possession of this owner, the armor's right hand fell off, with the in-game flavor text stating that it was a force originating from within the armor. Crumbling armor's ego is called Life for a Daredevil, being the first weapon capable of dishing out pale damage. Pale damage is unique because it essentially cuts off life force. An assault on the soul being the rarest damage type. It also tends to be the most difficult to counter because so many suits are weak against it. Crumbling armor loves repression, but if you repress it and do attachment on something else, you instantly die, Lamau. And let's not forget to mention the gift for crumbling armor. The gift is this little flame that grows more intense the more you repress the armor, having really great benefits at first, but as the flame also grows redder, it also has a lot of drawbacks. So I say it isn't worth it, and it also has that thing where if you do any attachment work with another abnormality, it just kills you instantly, so Forsaken Murderer is a little goo goo gaga shellfish baby, and the worst part is, when I first started, I actually struggled to deal with him. Forsaken Murderer was my first problem abnormality. I hadn't figured out how to deal with his suppression, didn't figure out the healing, how to juggle combat employees, and moreover, his maximum Qlifoth counter is 1. Getting 1 bad work result is a guaranteed breach. I was young and tragically unlobbed in those days. Now every time I see a breaching Forsaken Murderer, my heart swoons. Like seeing a baby taking their first steps. What an adorable sight. Forsaken Murderer is a murderer that was forsaken by death. Imagine being granted immortality, with all its inherent positives and negatives. You never have to face your own death, unlimited time to do anything in the world, the ability to be anyone. Novel at first, but the fun part will soon become only a blip in your infinite life as everything descends into boredom, apathy, and insanity. Life has lost all its connotation, as does murder. So you kill. People are afraid of you, someone with infinite hatred and infinite sorrow. In essence, he's a dude that can't die. Worse yet, the corporation will keep him bound through February 28th of 2025, meaning he will not have access as all his friends on the outside are playing the monster game and the funny eye patch man game. Speaking of head, he turns his into a giant steel shell to do his forsaken murdering. How impractical. This guy out of 85 abnormalities has a weapon that references a character named Carmen by name. A little bit silly because why him out of anyone else? When it comes to ranking, I don't really know where to put him. Like, he was my first struggle abnormality, and I'm sentimental about that, but he's also super noisy. You can hear his frantic breathing from anywhere in the facility, and that kind of gets old after a while. He also doesn't have the cojones to go full bald, which is just pitiful. Mid-tier. No low tier. No mid-tier. This guy is like the forsaken murderer, but for attachment. This is an abnormality not made up of matter that exists on Earth, constantly morphing with a metaphysical appearance that words can't describe. It loves to sing, but everyone that listens to its songs quickly find themselves in psychiatric hospitals, because this guy only sings YouTuber music. Everyone that comes in contact with this thing is basically guaranteed permanent brain damage. After deducing that the abnormality is as smart as, if not smarter than the average human being, it was put through the American school system and found a low-wage job at a billion-dollar corporation, slaving the rest of its days away in order to make rich people even richer, all while secretly being experimented on and prodded at by the CIA. The results of these experiments are very interesting. According to it, it's based its form on a picture drawn by a child, changing its form because the child's expression while drawing it was happy. It came here to share its species' knowledge with us. The moment we fully understand that knowledge, we will know their ultimate goal. And that there is no such thing as a coincidence in the universe. It's capable of singing Minecraft parodies slowed plus with reverb, causing everyone with it to sing the same thing. Most of those people dying of starvation in mental institutions because they're too passionately dancing to Don't Mind at Night. Again, this guy is just forsaken murderer but likes attachment, and instead of dealing physical red damage, it does black damage with its tentacles. Bummer, because they're not feet. While breaching, it'll use its ultimate ability and start screaming. This being the echoes from beyond, dealing massive white damage to absolutely nobody, except clerks. This abnormality is cute and is never a problem, and I still love feet. The cherry blossom tree is a tree that gains leaves as it grows closer to going sicko mode and captivating everybody to go get absorbed into it. The pretty flowers might look nice and all, but it's a trick. You will get nabbed into this hole at the base that nobody talks about for some reason. The amount of blossoms it has is directly tied to its Qlifoth counter. The counter lowering on a good work result. When the counter hits 0, the little hands at the base will begin excitedly caressing the walls of its little hole, and the tree will captivate a random employee. Letting an employee get got will cause everyone in the facility to restore full health and sanity. Actually quite helpful, as it only needs one employee to be satisfied and pulls in a lot of purposeless clerks into its net. Plus, if it does captivate an employee that you don't want to be tree fertilizer, just click on them and they'll snap out of it. Blood. Here we have another tool abnormality, one with a particularly strong vitriol towards those who are greedy. Those that take what they don't need and offer very little in return. It will heal an employee and buff their health cap for as long as it's being worn. After recovering to full health, your employee has 1 minute to either return it or take more damage to heal off, lest they get healed to death. The same thing will happen if the abnormality is returned while not having full health. Not really sure why that would happen since this thing is all about punishing greed, and if you're returning it before you're full up, that feels like it's the opposite of greedy, but oh well. I find this abnormality boring. Can it be useful? Yeah. Do I ever use it? No. Alright guys, here we have a real problem abnormality. Hey, he kinda looks familiar. Let God Buell. Meat Lantern is a little mound of chicanery. I look deep into those eyes and the only thing reflected back at me is pure unfiltered foolishness. A fact that he's so clearly an anglerfish should be of no concern, and the fact that he buries himself in a random, barely detectable spot and jump scares you with 500 damage is also no concern. At least, that's what our boy Lloyd said to Paul. Don't mind that they sound exactly like me and Nova Cream 31. That's not a flower. Order all the employees nearby to evacuate immediately. Do not run away in a group. You have to slowly escape one by one.
What are you talking about? I thought I told you there's nothing nearby. Wait, I just felt a slight tremor beneath my feet. Is someone fixing pipes today?
Screw it. Enjoy looking at that flower all you want.
Bet.
No point in alarming your friends if they're already goners, right? So what makes this thing such a little bastard, you may ask? For starters, the maximum Qlifoth counter is 1, meaning you're 1 bagged work result away from an instant breach. Beyond that, if your employee finishes work with him before 40 seconds have passed, he also breaches. Why is that? I don't know. You're best off hiring an employee with temperance level 1 or using the holy happiness machine to lower someone's stats to the point where they can work with him without getting breached. The game itself says that the entire corporation may collapse if this little mound of fluff breaches. Hyperbole? Yeah, if you have a ranged weapon, stand back and laugh maniacally as Legabulo is shredded from a safe distance. The pain points with this abnormality has less to do with its fights and more to do with the abnormality itself. To keep it at bay, you can never level up or send a non-temperance level 1 employee in there. And when it does escape, someone's going to die. Agents might be fine, but clerks are stupid and will walk right over it. Which may sound like only a slight annoyance, but it really becomes painful when you start getting abnormalities that are sensitive to clerk deaths. So in conclusion, he's a sneaky little stinker. I'd like to also bring attention to the ego gift, which gives your agent stupid little teeth. Those are pretty funny. Low tier. So I can put him in the ground. This is the world's loneliest woman telling stories to fill the void. The content of these stories being ostensibly trauma-inducing to the point where they cracked the walls of her containment unit. That's right, her very words are so cursed, they destroy structure. Real 2024 brain rot. She's an extremely easy abnormality to manage, mostly because you can just straight up neglect her. Maybe that doesn't help her loneliness issues, but who cares? Get over it. Her Qlifoth counter lowers whenever another abnormality's containment unit is entered and not hers. Upon hitting 0, a black haze dubbed Solitude will permeate the room. Okay, Gam Gam. Sorry for not visiting in so long. I've been busy. She craves attachment work the most, though really any work type works with her. It knows every story, both known and unknown. This story could be a lullaby, an unspecified poem, a nursery rhyme, a common children's story, or something entirely new. And they're all pretty bad if they elicit this response from employees. She's filled with loneliness and tells her tales to fill that void. This might be one of the best beginner abnormalities to have because of how low maintenance she is and how forgiving the penalties are for mismanaging her. Employees suffering from solitude will only take slight white damage, which higher prudence agents can be sent in to tank. And most of the time in earlier days, you'll never even have to deal with it. She also gives you a revolver. That's fun.
To be with you all the time.
This second wholesome 100 Pupperino has creatine and pre-workout in his containment unit. Can you guess why? This heckin' Chonkerino Ponkerino wants instinct work and only instinct work. See these stats? They mean nothing. His Qlifoth counter will drop, which will turn him into a testosterone titan complete with tattoos and washboard abs. Breaching chunky Chungus 100 is just a more dangerous Forsaken murderer, moving much faster and dealing almost triple the red damage. L Forsaken Bacon. But when he kills an agent or clerk, he instantly goes home. In the managerial tips, it mentions Pepode taking something from a deceased employee. If I had to guess what he took, either he sucked out their human growth hormone through a bendy straw to fuel his unlimited gains, or dug out a bone to chew on like a good boy. Attempts to bring the abnormality out of its unit may occur from time to time, but this is not a concern as they are typically prevented by other employees. When too many employees want to work with this abnormality, a lottery will be held to decide who gets the privilege of doing so. Our employees tend to show symptoms of mental regression, such as oddly toned speech with a high pitch upon entering its containment unit. But it seems this is only a temporary problem. Many of our employees refer to this abnormality as the goodest boy in the world, Pepode. However, its official designation is simply Pepode. Please make sure you don't get this confused. Every employee who enters its containment unit must upload a video or photo report of this abnormality. This is highly, extremely, uber important. Ensure that nobody misses this step. Did you know? Pepodai is the Korean word for poofy. This makes sense because Pepodai is a dog, and some dogs tend to be that way. This is the nicest dog in the game. Society when book. The prophecy of skin is a book made of skin. When someone gazes upon those fleshy pages, their prudence will improve. The drawback being a new weakness to white damage. Upon repeated uses, their prudence will continue to increase as the weakness gets more severe. Losing your sanity while under the influence of it will open up a portal to the flesh dimension, through which arteries will emerge and drag your agent down to watch the Borderlands movie on repeat. The writers believe that in order to preserve the sanctity of the tome, they had to write it in skin. Those who read it will be enlightened to unimaginable truths like that the earth is a velociraptor and the correct way to pronounce Tigrex is actually Tigrex. Pointing out that second part will surely leave them without any friends or invitations to social gatherings. Those who master these truths are called prophets. It's actually pretty useful if an abnormality requires a certain level of prudence, and I never really had that much of an issue with the white damage. But just remember, You must be happy. The Loud House revamped fanfiction, etched into virgin flesh with over 16 million words, is mid-tier. This guy is a little blob of distilled perfection. I love him. Breaching containment whenever he feels like it, and when he does breach, he only gently pecks the people that he's upset with. Why does he breach? Well, it's because he's possessive, and someone that he likes entered the containment unit of another abnormality. A woeful day when Punishing Bird's wrath befalls the facility. Obviously, he doesn't have much firepower, but you have to send him back to his perch somehow, right? Now, once he gets his anger out, he'll go back home on his own accord. I mean, you could suppress him, but why would you do such a thing to this cute little fella? Not to mention the fact that fighting back isn't a good idea, as he'll just activate his death be upon ye move, dealing double the damage of Meat Lantern's ambush attack because he deserves it. I feel a special little connection with this little guy, because on my first meeting with him, he broke the game and replaced one sin and 100 good deeds as my beginner abnormality, breaking the game out of sheer silly guyness. He's good with every work type, barring repression, and is only ever an issue when he's breaching past the day's quota, which keeps you from being able to end it without losing a lob point. He's a small and fearsome bird that punishes the evil and the guilty, mightily fluttering its tiny wings to do so. People have been committing sins since long ago. Why do they commit sins, knowing it's wrong? The small bird wondered. It must be because there's no one to punish people for their misdeeds. If someone takes that role, then no foul act would happen in this world ever again, leaving the forest it lived in and never going back. We gave him a little perch to sit on because he deserves it. Also, regretfully, his ego equipment is nothing special, though the suit is notable due to having a writhing chest, as if it were alive. My favorite abnormality, easy top tier. An abnormality based on the short story, The Little Match Girl. A girl who tried to sell matches that nobody bought. So in fear of being beaten by her father and in remembrance of her grandmother, she lit all the matches and died in the cold when they went out. Oh no guys, the video game character has a sad backstory. The Scorched Girl's charred body represents the child's crumbling hope, while the eternally blazing match impaled through her torso represents the obsession for affection. This desire for affection becomes significant upon her breach, as she'll choose a completely random target to try and get affection from, and mark them with a matchstick. She'll then make her way to that person, talking about warmth the whole way, and wanting to be held. And when she reaches her target, she'll explode, killing her target and anyone else in the immediate vicinity. This is one of the easiest breaches to handle because she doesn't have a lot of health and will completely ignore anyone that isn't her target. So you can just dogpile on her. This abnormality that wants love and connection wants attachment. So performing that on her is asking her to break out and try and get more. Also, her ego weapon is hilarious, just a giant match cannon. That's neat. Spider Bud is such a homie. She's my Spider Bud. D. She's a fantastic way to train up fortitude as long as you don't touch her babies. Otherwise, your agent will get cocooned. That means not doing insight work, because part of insight work is cleaning the room, and you know, if you clean the room, then that's gonna probably end up squishing one of her babies. You do not want to do that. Of course, that is unless you want extra PE boxes. When the Spider Bud has more bodies, it'll give you more of that sweet, sweet brain juice. And it is kind of unnerving to think that a cocooned agent isn't actually dead and is being kept fresh and alive for her babies, with the spider's toxin slowly poisoning their heart. But they knew what they were signing up for when getting hired to Lobotomy Corp. Definitely not expecting joy and happiness. What the? A tool abnormality without a drawback? No instant death, no peer-reviewed scientific study that I have to keep in mind. You can just have an employee pick it up and enjoy some nice buffs. Oh, something feels wrong. Maybe I should put it back. Oh, I getcha. You got me good, you little stinker. The Heart of Aspiration is awesome. You have someone pick it up and you let them enjoy buffed fortitude and attack speed. The drawback, the single drawback, being that they can't put it back until they hurt something. Otherwise, they'll go on a murdering spree. I am shocked there exists such a simple abnormality in the game with so few strings attached. I guess we're still in the tests and things will ramp up eventually, but yeah, the Heart of Aspiration is great. Lads, I know what you're thinking. But no, you cannot sex the Spider Bud. You can, however, pop into this containment unit and stare at this woman's rear. Don't worry, she won't mind. Oh wait, yes she will. Jump scare, by the way. The lady facing the wall is based on the Greek story of Orpheus, whose bitch failed a QuickTime event and he now has to get her out of the underworld. Hades allows him to go get her under the condition that he can't look back at her until they're completely out of his underworld. And he did exactly what he was told not to do. And because of that, he lost her again. Similarly to the story, those who look back at the lady when finishing with their work, those who have level 1 temperance, will look back and see her face extended out to them. God, women are scary. She's a solid early fortitude trainer. Attachment might look nice, but obviously this is Lobotomy Corp and everything that looks nice has like 8 layers of traps on it. Performing attachment is a guaranteed drop to her Qlifoth counter, and letting it hit 0 will cause her to scream, which freaks everybody out. This won't kill or panic any agents, but every clerk is like a wet napkin in terms of durability, so yeah, they're gonna die. Also, her weapon is rated at a he, while herself being a teth, so it's pretty good for when you get it. I'm still getting over the fact that there's a FNAF jump scare in this game. F tier. I hate you. You give me nothing but stress and pain. What is this abnormality's ability? Does it have some unfair or overpowered trait? No, not at all. It plays music that heals sanity points of everyone in the department that the music plays in. Incredibly helpful. Why do I hate it? Because after 30 seconds, it'll drive the employee using it mad, and I always forget to make them stop using it. In my original playthrough of this game, I had an employee that I always sent in that would always come out running and screaming, running around the entire facility, freaking out clerks, making the clerks die, which upset my clerk death dependent abnormalities. Bro, chill out. Clerks do not deserve rights. They're not human. They're not people. Then I couldn't stop them to snap them out of it because they run so fast. The run and scream panic is so much worse than all the others. So in the end, this thing is responsible for a huge fraction of my day restarts. The T in that classification stands for trauma, and that trauma is mine and mine alone. This thing is not an issue for literally anybody. I can see the timeline where this thing could be a great help if it's put in a department that it shares with the high white damage abnormality, but I'm petty. Today's shy look is a unique fella. His work result is based not so much on what type of work you do on him, but actually on the mood of the abnormality. To decipher this guy's mood, you just gotta watch the little fella skitter between faces until he winds up behind the extra happy face. Oh whoops, he zipped from the very happy face to the very angry face. Guess you'll take twice the amount of black damage and get half the work done. According to the game's logs, today's shy look was just a normal guy living it up in the city, feeling a little down. That sadness wouldn't suffice to the corporate overlords, but this guy simply couldn't bring themselves to force a smile. So they flayed their skin, hung it up to dry, and carved 5 different faces into it. The response given to why they do such a terrifying thing is simply, I'm just shy. That's all, just shy. Just don't look behind the skin. That would be rude and invasive. If today's shy look likes an agent, they'll offer them a gift. This gift being a tanned face that they can wear. Delightful. I love the uniqueness of this abnormality. It's such a little bastard that always jukes me out by running away from a happy face to an angry face. Epic troll. Why is this thing not a Zan? Standard training dummy rabbit is something you can only get if you're in the tutorial of the game. He's a harmless little fella that thinks he's a fellow employee with a tendency to follow agents out of its unit. All work types are enjoyed with a 100% success rate on attachment. Be careful though. Using powerful unforeseen telekinetic powers, he can hypnotize Bong Bong into setting him free. Bad Bong Bong, bad. He can show up in the actual game though. That sneaky little button of doom will pretend to be him in the hopes of getting pressed. And that's it.
Ah, mamma mia.
The fluffy little guy lives to sleep, and he shares that passion with all that he comes into contact with. People with level 1 temperance will enter a permanent slumber in its containment unit, and when it breaches, it also makes employees fall asleep outside. But these people can be awoken just by shaking them. Attempts to suppress the little guy will make him pull his cock out, with a crow causing every sleeping employee in the department to instantly go insane. According to the logs, this abnormality causes psychological damage, not with nightmares, but by giving dreams of such unbelievable bliss and pleasure that employees simply do not want to burden themselves with waking life. It wants to give out sweet dreams, enrapturing dreams that they themselves desire. Whether the side effect of having the affected employee spiral into depression is intentional or not is unclear. It's implied to be able to feed on dreams after the fact. Void Dream is based on the Japanese yokai Baku. Quoting from Wikipedia, legend has it that a person who wakes up from a bad dream can call out to Baku. A child having a nightmare in Japan will wake up and repeat 3 times, Baku-san, come eat my dream. which is near identical to Void Dream's observation log. He's cute, his gift is cute, and he's a neat final teth to cap off the list. Alongside those teths, there's also the ordeals, the uncontainable dudes Malkuth described as being even spookier than the abnormalities. Ooh. At dawn, there will be an ordeal of amber, crimson, green, or violet. The ordeal of Amber Dawn is food-themed, spawning in a horde of hungry worms in a hallway of every department with the goal of devouring your clerks, before moving on to another hallway. Not so scary. The ordeal of Crimson Dawn is carnival themed and has these little baby clown things that also appear in a hallway of every department. Their goal is to upset abnormalities and drop PE boxes. They also explode on death, which is kind of annoying. This is the most worrisome Dawn ordeal, but to be honest, still not that bad. The ordeal of Green Dawn is ancient war machine themed and spawns in some of the easiest to defeat enemies in the game, with the goal to sow doubt in the people that watch as it dices up their coworkers. The ordeal of Violet Dawn is otherworldly themed, spawning in a little pink thing that can either be the easiest suppression in the game or the biggest headache. Get to him fast and step on his stinky little pink forehead, or wait for 2 seconds too long and then scream as your entire facility goes down in flames because it released one dude that's too annoying. As the days pile up and the missions are completed in greater numbers, more strange, horrific things start rearing their heads in the seams of Lobotomy Corporation. Things that beg the question, who am I? Who is the character that I'm seeing this story through? We receive messages from a character that goes by B, one of the 3 original creators of the company, warning you that your mechanical assistant Angela is not to be trusted. To counter this, Angela begins warning you of a rat in the system and talking in metaphors to hide the fact that she is molding through the floorboards. She drops the warm and smiley facade and fully embraces her resentful self. Machines aren't supposed to have wants and desires. Even though Angela was given the ability to feel every human emotion possible alongside a huge array of supernormal abilities that is kept purposely hidden to us. But that's whatever, right? After all, a woman is finally talking to us. This is at least 5% less sad than having an 18+ chat with a character AI, or just any chat with character AI for that matter. Now it's time for the middle layer, Bria. Bria is based on the Kabbalah's Bria, the world of creation, with the Sephiroth being the Tifereths, Chesed, and Geburah. Tiferet is harmony, truth, compassion, and beauty, the balance between attraction and repulsion, represented by these 2 tiny machines. Tifereth female is immature and impulsive, whereas Tifereth male is on some different planet than we are. He's a little special, don't worry, we love him regardless. Connected to Tiferet on either side are Geburah and Chesed. Chesed being the source of love and outward growth, whereas Geburah is the source of hate and withdrawal inward. Chesed is a coffee-sipping salaryman that hopelessly complies with everything Angela tells him to do, and Geburah is... Why do I feel like I've been here before? Geburah wants to eviscerate every abnormality to the point where nothing remains but a red mist floating wistfully away in the wind. And if she can't have that, then maybe her underlings will suffice. As previously stated, this is where the difficulty really ramps up. This is where we start getting more and more wows and even Aleph abnormalities and higher frequencies. There's a lot more space in the facility that you got to keep track of and manage, as well as these higher level monsters, so it only gets worse from here.
Do you accept Reddit karma?
This reminds me of the world's worst social platform, Kick.com. Brought to you by the fine folks that developed We Can Change Anything. All Around Helper is a must-have home robot produced by XX Incorporated. It can make coffee, feed the dog, do your homework, evade your taxes, perform a vasectomy, and clean. Clean, clean, clean. And record people's conversations, apparently. Why do I feel like there's a lawsuit in there somewhere? I mean, for the recording private conversations, I guess that killing people is also lawsuit worthy, but never mind. This helper came from a family that was found all massacred after the daughter of the family asked it to clean. Its methods of cleaning you'd probably better understand by looking at its full portrait. When the word cleaning is mentioned, or if an agent is assigned cleaning via insight work, the all-around helper will extend 4 mechanical blade arms, the function of which being to blend up any meat it comes into contact with. When breaching, the abnormality will barrel down a hallway with blade arms flying, before hitting a wall and retracting its appendages. It'll then take a little nap, giving your agent some time to wail on it before it gets up to continue the cycle. Reddit.
This is Sicily and danger.
Der Freischütz, English name the Free Shooter, is a world-hopping German man on a quest to kill baddies. He made a deal with the devil to get a magical bullet that can hit anyone. apathetically killing all his loved ones with it using his custom Martini Henry. Becoming a devil himself, sometimes fighting for those in need, not out of any sense of goodwill, but to simply collect their souls. He takes issues with agents of low justice, dropping his Qlifoth counter, and at 0 he will aim his gun to a portal and fire. This bullet traveling a full horizontal line through the facility, hurting anyone it touches. This abnormality is incredibly unique because in the place of attachment, you can instead commission it to shoot a bullet at a place of your choosing in the facility, at the cost of 10% of your PE boxes. Imagine you just really hate your coworkers. They go to you, try to talk to you when you're busy fantasizing about your coming goon session. What if you could just delete all of them? Bam, easy. Just like that, everyone on the floor is done for. His ego gear is ridiculously good for the tier, at least. I would say that if it didn't toggle on friendly fire. Insane damage, insane defense, and insane stat boosts. And not only that, but when combined with the complete set, it increases attack power. All that power focused on one bullet going straight into your coworker's prefrontal cortex. That's a shame. Has-been hotel looking ass. Fuck shit, bitch, sex, intercourse, hell, fuck, sex. Butterfly Twink has near identical stats to German Man, and likewise has no tolerance for people of low justice. Though unlike Guy from The Guys Who Lost, he also really hates agents with high fortitude. If I had to guess why, it would be because they have the highest health and are the furthest people from death. Butterfly Twink is fixated with death, originally coming to Lobotomy Corp to free the dead employees. What it means to free already dead employees won't make sense right now, but when we start talking about the boy who steals time, it'll make a little bit more sense. This, like Forsaken Murderer, was one of my first problem abnormalities. He breaches all the time and floods hallways with butterflies, dealing constant white damage that, instead of panicking your agent, kills them with the butterflies going on their resting faces. Also, just like Forsaken Murderer, I grew up and realized that this is one of the easier abnormalities. It is very simple to get him to go back into his own coffin and disappear. I adore his gear because I'm like a huge fan of the noir color scheme, and this is everything that I want. The rest of him, I've never watched Has-Been Hotel, so sure, you're alright, I guess. I love tool abnormalities that make me explode and melt. It goes like this. If you drink some tree sap once, nothing will happen, and your employee will feel great. They'll get a huge regeneration bonus to their health. The problems arise on subsequent uses, i.e. if you send another employee in there to take a swig out of that sippy cup, the sappy cup, they'll have a 15% chance to explode, which further increases upon subsequent uses. If I had to guess, this was a mechanism by which the giant tree the sap came from could get its nutrition. The outskirts of the city is lacking in not much of, if any, suitable soil for plant life, so think about it this way. The first animal goes and drinks the giant tree's sap and feels great. So that animal disappears and brings its family or pack to drink from the giant tree. Now that there's more there, a member of its pack violently explodes, killing everyone in its vicinity. The giant tree in that way has created its own nutrition. I treat it like a one-use abnormality that I usually forget about anyways. I always feel so nervous around this guy. He's extremely simple, and that's where my issue with him lies. Don't have an agent work with it 2 times in a row. If you do, they'll get hugged to death. The teddy shows incredible affection, and will hug whoever tries to hug it so hard that it breaks their neck. It really is as simple as that. I just always forget, and my children always die. Also never use instinct, because he hates that. The little witch Laetitia is a doll that deeply cares about her friends, coming here to cheer up the gloomy people of Lobotomy Corp. If she likes someone, she'll give them a surprise gift in the form of this heart. That way everybody can laugh when one of her friends mentioned in her entry bursts out and starts cutting everybody down. You can actually see the friend in Laetitia's portrait if you zoom in far enough on the heart. Pretty neat little detail, I think. She gives her gift on a normal work result, and it'll lay dormant on that employee until they go to perform work on another abnormality that isn't Laetitia. As the employee gets closer to the containment unit that they're going to, the heart will crack and shake. This being your time to cancel the work order or otherwise sacrifice your agent. The friend isn't incredibly dangerous, but you can just avoid it entirely so easily. Her ego equipment are also all crazy good, and HE abnormality that's this low maintenance and worry-free is nice. Unlike the next guy. Blob-shaped hate. Very temperamental. Don't get a bad work result once. Don't even get a normal work result once. Only interact with it if it's necessary, and it's having a meltdown. And when you do work with it, have a high fortitude nugget work instinct. What happens when it loses that singular point on its counter? It starts crying uncontrollably, begging to be fed. This crying upsetting all the other abnormalities in its department. That's right, even other abnormalities don't fuck with this guy. So what do we do to stop Nameless Fetus's crying? The higher level employees get together and spin a roulette wheel. The purpose of this wheel is unknown to the lower level employees. They being told that the selected get a promotion, transferred to a branch called headquarters, and their family gets paid a fortune. It's always so strange to them when everyone starts crying and bidding that person farewell. Not even a shred of joy. One day you'll understand the meaning of the desperation on their faces when the roulette spins. I seldom interact with this thing when I have it, and normally that's enough. Like I said, it's only a problem when you're required to deal with it because of how easily and frequently things go awry. I feel like people overblow how much of a pain this thing is to deal with when it really doesn't give at least me that many issues. I guess the fact that you manage it by not interacting with it kind of makes it a waste, because in its place could be an actual useful abnormality that isn't complete RNG. It has gross looking ego equipment with decent stats and a pair of earmuffs for a gift, which is absolutely wonderful. Also, Nameless Fetus's name isn't right because its name is Nameless Fetus, making it named. But named fetus sounds stupid, and this thing doesn't deserve the honor of being named, and it's also stupid, and everything about this guy is stupid. The only joy that came from getting this was getting it and a scarecrow on day one, and seeing this thing being auto-quarantined, because he's stupid. The note from a crazed researcher is a notebook full of incoherent babble phrases. People that pick up this thing without reading a good amount of its contents will explode. If they get into combat and take damage while also holding the note, they will once again explode, coating their coworkers in a viscous red slime that will no doubt be a topic of discussion in their next psychiatric wellness meeting. Born again, huh? I wonder if that means anything in the grand scheme of things. Porcubus is all about pleasure, giving employees such an insatiable taste that only temperance level 4 employees that won't indulge in the pleasure could survive a positive encounter with it. Those that it likes will be pricked with a thorn, that thorn causing the most intense good feelings humanly feasible, and beyond humanly feasible, following the pleasure unbearable withdrawal symptoms. And just like a lot of drugs, people will return to the source of that high, needing higher doses just to reach the same level of pleasure. And the final time they see Porcubus is the time they've won its game of trust, pulling out its bulb and sensually rubbing it on them. And as you can probably tell right here, the recipient of this high is receiving so much pleasure, it is simply mind-blowing. Despite that, managing him is fine, dare I say, super easy. Just have your employees have high temperance and maybe some insight to deal with its work damage. When Porcubus's Clefoth counter reaches 0, it breaks out and is likewise a huge danger to level 3 and lower temperance agents. And uniquely, he's also completely immune to ranged attacks, making your path to suppressing him very limited. Still, easy guy. This abnormality gave me way more problems than it probably should have on my first playthrough. Its ability is kinda exactly like Nameless Fetus's if you were able to save the person on their death march. This thing will possess at random 1 low temperance agent. This thing will possess at random 1 employee, sending them on a psychotic rampage if they're not shaken out of it before they reach the shoes. On my first playthrough, this thing was agony to manage because I didn't realize you could just click your dumb, stupid agents out of it. People wearing the Tims will materialize in acts and become obsessed with covering them in blood, being deathly afraid of them getting taken off. So they become stronger and kill everyone they see. Sometimes the axe is a downgrade. If you have a facility full of people with Aleph and WoW gear, then killing the person wearing the shoes should be just so easy, so effortless. Its ego gear is insanely drippy too, so good for you, Mr. Shoe. Did not expect to be putting you as high as you are. How cute. Guys, look. Santa. And Rudolph. Sorry, Rudolta. And his sleigh. Merry Christmas. Aside from the sheer horror one should feel gazing upon this festive disaster, Rudolta is actually pretty chill. It loves insight and attachment. Plenty of space for a good work result, and its breach isn't too bad because of its relatively low health for an HE level threat. It does do this thing where it spurts out some blood occasionally, which is pleasant, but as long as your fighters are psychiatrically intact, they can jump Santa Claus with little to no issue. No one on the face of the earth has ever got upset when they got Rudolta. He is the chillest HE. This thing saved me against a certain abnormality that I'm not allowed to show, nor can I show because I haven't seen it either. Portrait of Another World etches a character's likeness into the canvas, and when doing this, it will also give that agent a damage transference effect. Above the original agent's head will be a little spooky face, a face that it'll share with another agent somewhere in the facility. Now, any damage that the original agent takes will transfer to another person at an increased rate, the second agent with the spooky face. When the second agent that the damage gets transferred to dies, the mark hops to someone new, meaning that yes, it is possible to wipe out half your facility when used in conjunction with We Can Change Anything. As time goes on, the image etched into the canvas will become more twisted and mutilated, sending more and more damage over to the second party. I've never really had an issue with this though, because there are plenty of means to heal the second employee. Just don't have someone else interact with the painting when already in use. What would result is the grotesque death of the original user of the portrait. Love this thing, very exploitable with the right components. This bloodied field-watching abomination can be annoying. He breaches without fail wherever someone with high insight leaves his unit, so that way he can chase them down and suck their brain out through a bendy straw. The story tells of a city that had the technology to replace body parts. It didn't matter the social, economic status of the individual. Everyone was eligible for treatment. Rumors began to circle when a rich person with poor eyes approached a beggar. The rich person would get his eyes, and the beggar abandoned, rotting in the outskirts. To dispel these rumors, they carried out free procedures for the citizens, one of which came back with a long scar on his head and feeling no emotion. Ah yes, the second lobotomite of Lobotomy Corporation. This man wouldn't last long, and the city would move on, its emerald brick road sparkling bright as ever. It's never explicitly stated what connection the man has to the Scarecrow, but I do know that it's a reference, and I like references, especially when I get them. This is one of the 4 in-universe references to the Wizard of Oz. He's not bad early game since he's pretty much fine with every work type, and is obnoxious late game when all your nuggets have higher than level 2 prudence. Not that a couple level 4 or 5 agents can instantly snap him in half, but it's more of a hassle than anything else. Schadenfreude, the sense of satisfaction you derive from observing someone else's misfortune. If you ever watched someone play the video game Monster Hunter DOS before, that's Schadenfreude. This is an incredibly unique abnormality. You can tell when the manager is looking at him, and he's a little shy. While testing Schadenfreude's ability, they put a blindfolded person into the containment unit to stare directly at the abnormality. This blindfold blocked their vision totally, and Schadenfreude didn't react. A second test happened with another person wearing a nearly identical blindfold, the only difference being the one wearing the blindfold could see enough to make out shapes and forms. Schadenfreude responded aggressively. A third test was sent in with a blind employee that would stare directly at the abnormality, and there was no reaction. Please dispose of the subject used in D004 immediately. This concluding the experiment that it doesn't matter if something is looking at it, it will always be content as long as it's not being visually processed. Same with my SCP lookalike. While the thing in the keyhole is under observation, the abnormality will grow restless, permanently scarring observers into believing they're always being watched. If you rest your camera on it while it's being worked on, it will quickly breach, being quite strong and dangerous to kill for early gamers. But as you may be able to guess, the second it stops being directly observed, everything is completely peachy fine, okie dokie. The dude will freeze and be just completely safe until it's contained. Its ego suit is cool because it also has the eye, this one increasing the defense and justice of the employee wearing it when they're being looked at. Its sprite also has this weird 3D effect, or 3D look to it, that I don't really know if I like. It's just kind of feels out of place. I don't know. He's a weird guy. He's cool though. It may appear just to be an ordinary grinder, but please be careful. Every abnormality may not have a reason to exist, but they all have a will to persist. Singing Machine is notorious, insta-killing any high fortitude, low temperance agents and turning them into music. This music bewitching another employee with its sheer grandeur, making them unable to listen to Maroon 5's first album. This employee will lose their mind and attack other employees to throw into the singing machine in order to continue the music production. The more music produced, the more employees falling under its spell, and the more murderers on the loose. Don't worry though, because as long as you have a low fortitude, high temperance employee, you should be fine. Ah, fiddlesticks, I forgot. The insta-death bewitchment will happen anytime someone steps into its room while its Qliphotht counter is at 0. Its maximum number? 1. At that point, when it's 0, I play a little game called Pretend This Abnormality Doesn't Exist. It does have a really cool weapon and gift, so that's something, and it's also implied to be the creator of Bald is Awesome, so that's epic. Here's what you need to know about the shelter. It was made by another wing that will protect any one single agent from dying, and prolonged use will cause every abnormality to lose their minds. The effects can be absolutely catastrophic. Got it? Got it. Now remember 2 other tool abnormalities, Portrait of Another World and We Can Change Anything. Here's how you can cheese the game. Hire a new employee, this one will die so don't get too attached. Spec super hard into fortitude and nothing else. Then when you're in the game, have this employee interact with the Portrait of Another World for damage transference. Then find the other randomly marked employee and station them outside of the shelter from the 27th of March. Now put the original fodder employee into We Can Change Anything. As soon as you do that, put your second marked employee into the shelter, which will protect them from death at all costs. Now sit back and enjoy as you get anywhere from 400 to 600 free PE boxes for virtually no cost. There are some holes in this strategy, like the employee inside the shelter being still damageable. While in the shelter, the damage transference will put them down to 0 health, but the shelter will not allow them to die. If ordered to leave the shelter while they're at 0 health, womp womp, you'll get them next time, champ. So make sure they stay inside the shelter just a touch longer than the marked dude's death, just so the shelter can regen them up past not 0. Then it'll be safe for them to come out and continue the day as usual. You might think you could end the day early before the We Can Change Anything machine kills its user to save the user, but that's not true. And what's worse, the game will actually punish your greed by taking not only the PE pig, but also the sheltered agent too. Oh yeah, and make sure you don't send the wrong person into the shelter. If so, the damage transference thing will kill the agent, then jump to another agent to kill them, killing half of your facility in seconds. Very cheesy abnormality. There are many more cheese strats that you can do with this thing that I've not listed here. I will talk about those as they become relevant. Also very epic that every containment unit in the game has the number 27 in it, except for the shelter from the 27th of March.
What's the recommended amount of dedicated wham?
Child of the Galaxy is a boy with attachment issues, with no care for what type of work is done on him. He just wants to feel loved. Everyone that does work with him will receive a little token of friendship, something that's directly linked with the child's mood. When an agent with the gift walked into another abnormality's room, the child will feel neglected, and his Qliphotht counter will lower and he'll start saying sad things. When work with him starts with a token holder, he'll feel happy, and the counter will increase. If token holders die or neglect the sad boy too much, he will then start bawling like a little baby. Anybody holding a token will die synchronously. Pretty easy to contain if you ask me, just designate one person to be his friend for the day and you'll be good. I'd be bawling too if I was cursed to wear this raggedy old shirt forever, knowing that my suit looks like this. I also love that its ego is named Our Galaxy, with the people that wear it getting increased benefits from having the child's token of friendship. It's really sweet, and the sad boy should get over it.
I'm so cold that I'm shivering.
The Snow Queen is an awesome insight trainer, inspired by the 1844 Danish fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. This abnormality is perfectly fine to spam for 99% of the day, and for the other 1% she'll bend you over and steal your lunch money. Oh no, my dudes!
Don't worry, we're just chilling out.
Okay, that's cool. If someone gets frozen by her, send in a high fortitude employee to commence a duel to rescue them. If successful, they will both be freed, and given a great 0 drawback ego gift. Her weapon is also really cool, and yeah, this is just an incredibly helpful abnormality. I remember the day we put her in the cryo coffin with her own hands. At some point, her joyous laughter was gone. She just cycled through laughing and crying, and eventually she was found in a bathtub soaked in red with her wrists cut. One day, it spoke to me. I remember you. You were a kind-hearted person. The moment I heard it, I was seized by the urge to destroy what I had created with my own hands. Notice the phrasing here, it. It seems derogatory and carries with it a feeling of disgust. This is one of the most important and telling quotes in the game. It's referring to the same situation that the bloodbath did, and I know I say this all the time, like a lot in this video and just other videos and just all the time. We'll get to it later. We'll understand later. We'll see later. It's a surprise tool to help us later. Snow Queen's pretty chill. Warm-Hearted Woodsman is another member of the Wizard of Oz abnormalities, similar to the Scarecrow. The Tin Man asked a great wizard for a heart, to which the wizard gave him a heart of lead. The wizard explained that, as the Woodsman was a machine, he didn't need a heart, and told him off. In response, the Woodsman cut him open, removing that hard, cold, mechanical heart and replacing it with a soft, warm, ooey gooey real heart. Now whenever he breaches, he goes on a killing spree, felling people instead of trees, cutting them down and warming his heart with theirs. He's similar to the Scarecrow in that if you send someone in with a high temperance, he risks breaching. I guess high temperance mean the agent has a big heart, whereas insight means they have a big brain. He doesn't immediately breach though, and instead waits to ambush the next person that comes in, so it's also kind of like singing machine in that way. If the counter gets to 0, don't interact with him and everything will be just fine. This is an aside, but Warm-Hearted Woodsman's design is fantastic and I love how well they conveyed the sadness in his defeat animation. Dejectedly trying to get his heart to beat once again before it disappears, leaving him to fall to the floor. Sad man can stay sad. Al Ryun is a doll that wanted to be human, except it lacks a heart and a soul and a carotid artery. Without blood flow, one might suggest that she doesn't have a brain, a notion with which I'm inclined to agree. When she gets a bad or good work result, yes, I said good work result, she has a 70% chance to escape. When she escapes, she appears in some random hallway and stands there menacingly. This is the first WoW class abnormality, and they're called that because wow, everybody's dead. The way to deal with Al Ryun is to constantly have normal work results. My intended method is to have someone with high temperance do attachment work with her. The forced normal work result gimmick is used again for another far more notorious abnormality, which we'll touch on soon. Al Ryun, she's alright I guess. I really like the design. Blah. Good job for standing.
What's wrong, McFly? Chicken?
The backward clock is simple. You take a specifically level 5 agent, have them turn the key 4 times, watch as it doxes your time zone to your Twitch followers. When things inevitably go to shit, turn it one last time. Doing so will rewind every catastrophic event, barring any abnormalities or creatures that might be above time, such as God, the apocalypse, or those fucking shoes. If mishandled, i.e. sending in an employee that's lower than level 5, everyone will go insane or die instantly, except for My Hero Academia Rule 34, I guess. After proper use, the machine and the level 5 employee that used it will then disappear somewhere else in time. Great job, Max Design Pro. You will be dearly missed. This is the best tool abnormality, full stop. I'll just say that here. Knowing when to use this thing is critical for not showing yourself to the retry button, and it has one broken use for the hardest day in the game. For now, we'll put you in S tier. Big and might be Bad Wolf? No, big and will be Bad Wolf. Hey guys. Have we ever heard of Vor? When an agent gets a bad work result, the wolf will devour them, altering his appearance to DeviantArt. Peeling back a layer of this character, this could be the wolf expressing regret for eating a person, only doing it because in every children's story, the wolf is always the bad guy, a fact that he maliciously complies with and is clearly resentful towards. Instinct work will instantly free any agent stuck inside his tum. And before we continue with the wolf, let's talk about the other half of this story, Little Red. Hey guys, you ever watch Hoodwinked 2? Yeah, imagine if that movie was good. This is the better timeline of Little Red from that movie, where instead of going to Gilf Paradise to learn the cougar drop, she instead became a mercenary doing odd jobs while in search of that bitch wolf. She can be contracted to take care of abnormalities for you at the cost of PE boxes, being a fantastic asset against most, and will furiously auto-breach if Big and Will Be Bad Wolf howls in her containment department. Likewise, if Little Red enters the hallway of his containment unit, Big and Will Be Bad Wolf will auto-breach to get her ass. And so, this is a bloodthirsty, two-way rivalry we got going on here. The wolf, when it breaches, will go to marked rooms, killing and eating people. If this thing after eating people is suppressed by Little Red, everyone it ate will be freed and get a neat little ego gift. Don't ask me why you can't see it on their faces. As you can see here, it's on. I don't know why it's not visible. My game glitched. Here's what it should look like. Also, be careful not to get the killing blow instead of Little Red. If an agent steals the wolf kill from her, she will go berserk on that agent, giving her a damage and speed increase to take out on them. Wolf's equipment is great. Huge red resistance, which is tasty. The weapon does have a stipulation though. When they're at half health, the claw gets a damage increase, but can also hurt your bros. Same with Little Red's weapon. Little Red's ego suit and gift are also great. We're kind of heading into the territory where every ego thing is great, so I probably won't mention it unless it has some like crazy ability. You two fight it out, alright. I love Judgment. I also love Lost Judgment and Found Judgment. I can't wait to play them for the first time. This guy cries out no to say justice. This will probably be Baby's first encounter with pale damage if for some godforsaken reason this guy decides to break out. He's pretty content with chilling in his room. When he breaks his rules and leaves his containment unit, he judges people. And the bad boys that lose all their health to this attack get strung up with no cause, no choice, and no going back to how it was. He's a pretty easy abnormality to keep contained, all things considered, and there is a huge reason to get him early on. For some reason, they made Judgment Bird's equipment A-lift tier. Look at how insanely broken that suit is for this level. S tier, with his other Black Forest bird friend. Just don't have these two and the next bird around unless you want a mortifying, death-defying challenge. Judgment Bird's all-seeing, sparkling eyes now rest in Big Bird, a hulking monstrosity of a bird that can see everything happening in the facility. If too many people die, he will break free and start chomping off people's heads himself. Not doing it out of any sort of malicious intent, but to make it so that they don't die at the hands of whatever else is rampaging through the facility, causing the deaths. Little does he know that the person responsible for the deaths here is myself. To Big Bird, death is salvation. When a girl travels out to the forest at night and meets Big Bird, the reason why he bites her head off is not out of malice, but to save her from a beast that it believes to be somewhere in the forest that it has yet to see. This thing can be extremely dangerous if it escapes, creating a darkness in its current department. In that darkness, it can draw people to it with a wave of its lantern to be decapitated in one bite. If you see an agent with a little yellow circle in a darkened room, that means they're about to get drawn to Big Bird and have to escape the dark rooms, or else they'll meet a guaranteed death. In the meantime, have your other agents whittle away at its gigantic 1600 health. Like Judgment Bird, God bless, does it have some good ego equipment. It's so nice having these guys in the same facility. Hey, what is this door frame? And why are all the birds going towards it? Oh no. The apocalypse. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Please don't merge, you three. There is not an abnormality more awful, more annoying than the fecking Express Trek to Heck. You all probably noticed in the game clips I've shown a giant fucking train bowling through the facility and killing people. That's because Choo Choo Train of Doom is the game equivalent of Satan himself. Not even the actual Satan equivalent in the game has given me as much stress as this godforsaken soul-powered locomotive. This is the ultimate run ruiner, and easily the most notorious abnormality in the game. At one light on, the person interacting with it will get a health boost. At 2 lights, the person interacting with it will get a significantly larger health boost. At 3 lights, all employees in this department will get a health boost of 50. At 4 lights, your entire facility will get a health boost of 50. And if you don't send someone in to collect a ticket at all, a giant train will then come barreling through your facility and wreck an entire department, if not multiple departments, depending on its placement, potentially killing everyone there. If not that, then draining their sanity to the point of going crazy. And the best part, Unlike most abnormalities that will only move when work is done through the facility, based on Qlifoth counters and stuff like that, this thing counts real-world seconds, 30 to be exact, which speeds up and slows down depending on the game speed. So you can't just chill out and watch things go by while planning your next move, unless you pause. If you are unreasonably lucky, you can have the train chug the gap between Bria and Asia. Banking on that is stupid though, because this train exists to watch managers suffer. I hate you so much to the point where it's almost endearing. But not that endearing though. Choke on a carbon monoxide detector. Got him. Dimensional refraction variant is like 1.76 megahertz and has no physical form, being more of a phenomenon than anything else. The vacuum phenomenon, though strangely unlike megahertz. Refraction variant doesn't have an abstract classification, but instead a religious one. It can be best described as a small contained field of gravity. Those who pass through it get pulled apart like my favorite Lego minifigure. Only this time my 3-year-old cousin doesn't eat them. When it gets out, employees won't be able to see it, so you as the manager have to track down and order its suppression manually. Normally that's fine because you can just look for the trail of mangled clerk appendages as they get phased through by intense contradictory gravitational changes. The religious classification is still a mystery though. In its logs it mentions the start of its attack resembling crucifixion, but as far as I can tell that's the extent of it. It also takes a lot of psychological damage and is completely resilient to physical damage, so maybe it's like a spirit thing that doesn't know what it's doing but just wanders around, and since it's obviously extra dimensional, anything that it touches is unintentionally shredded. It would kinda explain why it's weakest to unconventional damage types and can't be seen. I know all that's a huge stretch, but I'm doing my best with the information provided. Easy WoW to deal with and keep contained, solid for stocking up on white damage weapons. Don't worry, it's on the tier list somewhere, you just can't see it. Attention all employees. BTS has appeared in a containment unit in the disciplinary department. Please, go steal the lead singer's legs. Dream of a Black Swan is one of those sad abnormalities, so in the background, we'll be using sad music. Elijah had a very large family to provide for. Her parents would say, "We're poor and going to die." Oh well. One day a big fog came by, setting the native air quality to be akin to a good day in Los Angeles. People puked and retched, but Elijah convinced herself that if she worked just that little bit harder, she could provide her brothers with their failing music career a chance to survive and be happy. Things would be happy. Things would work out. Just like that bird who eventually spread its white wings and became the envy of all. She put together clothes made out of nettles to protect them from the Long Beach AQI. One day on the way home from work, she bumped into a filthy, stinky local who seemed to be deathly afraid of her. He opened his mouth to speak, and from it he spat out some of that sensational prime energy. A delightful taste sensation. Elijah dropped the man and began to walk towards a shout in the distance. There were many people amidst the fog, some screaming, some laughing. Some wielding clubs, some curled up, bodies covered in wounds. Dark, wet, and fetid dregs were scattered all over the ground, covered in footprints. She began to look for her brothers. Her family, who needed to wear the nettle clothing to be free from the curse. Ones whom she shared happy dreams with. She saw her brothers in the distance, and Elijah fell to her knees, and finally started to puke up the same thing everyone else was vomiting. The lake ripples gently, as if a number of swans took flight. I don't know what any of that means. Thank you, Elijah. Very deep. Please do not become a giant swan monster with a funny umbrella. Assumedly, these are Elijah's brothers, and as the Qlifoth counter lowers, the more they show the fog's symptoms. Losing appendages and organs until it hits 0. When it hits 0, Big Sister will come to the rescue as this thing. She has a big umbrella which can reflect all attacks back at attackers, which carries over to her weapon. She's also able to drop the Qlifoth counter of every abnormality whose containment unit she walks in front of. Halfway through the fight, she will ditch her human face and go full Black Swan mode, which gives her a screamy move. Also, is it just me, or does this ego gift remind anybody of the Dark Matter swordsman from Kirby? She also has the most visually upsetting portrait and a whole laundry list of things to get her to spawn. In order to spawn the Black Swan, you have to let 5 employees die to gouge out the first brother's eyes. Have 5 employees panic to de-arm the second brother. Have 3 abnormalities breach to melt the third brother's legs. Melting the legs also reveals the 6th brother behind him with a big, beautiful smile. get a bad work result to melt the fourth brother's ears, and to get a normal work result to replace the last brother's jaw with bug juice. Man, I wish I was that guy. I like that every brother has such a distinct criteria. It makes it feel like this isn't just one abnormality, but a collective group of 6 individual abnormalities with different yet intertwined fates. Stupid black swan, be a turquoise swan instead, and turn the British boy band turquoise too. Now, Firebird is a proud Russian representative that loves it when people are hunting for it, granting those who do feathers. Firebird has a reversal gimmick to its Qlifoth counter, where a good work result will lower it and trigger its ability, and a bad work result will bring it back up. When its counter drops to 0, it becomes that one boss from Sonic Unleashed, and the agent there to witness it has their eye sockets burnt out by the sheer grandeur. Its attack is really annoying to deal with, blitzing to the other side of the hallway, dealing a lot of damage to anything it comes across, blinding those people as well. He's a total bitch to kill when he gets out. So don't. After 90 seconds, he goes home, so just evacuate that department, kill all the clerks yourself, and have him attack someone with high white defense. Elsewise, sign a contract with Gebra to have the rabbits do a hit on the bird. Even lamer and even easier. Killing the bird yourself instead of letting it go home will reward you with the ego weapon, the Feather of Honor, which I think is one of the best WoW weapons, full stop. It's a bird, he goes caca. The Clouded Monk is one of those OSHA dudes advocating for clerk rights. You know those uncontrollable, squishy little nuggets that are always first to go whenever something goes wrong? Yeah, they die, he gets mad. His story began on a journey to the cremation of an honored monk, when a man told him about an evil spirit lingering in the town. The monk says, evil spirits are naturally born from one's heart. At the cremation, everyone gathered around and searched the ashes of the monk for Sharira. Forgive my awful pronunciation. Sharira are gallstones formed within your body that, after exposure to intense heat, in this case, cremation, begin to look like beautiful opals or pearls. In Buddhist culture, Sharira is a sign of benevolence. A monk with lots of beautiful Sharira will go to Nirvana, and the emperor will build a huge temple named after that monk. After people searched the ashes and found no Sharira, the monk began talking to an old man who told him that those without any Sharira are worthless sinners on a path to nowhere. The old man then instructs the monk to go up to a pagoda with many boxes full of Sharira, left by many great monks, urging the monk to go and consume them. The old man then disappeared. A trick of the devil. Possibly an evil spirit, like the man in the beginning warned him about. Equally true is what the monk said in response, and soon the monk was up at the pagoda, now in the form of a preta. Evil spirits with swollen bellies to signify their huge hunger. Something the Clouded Monk transforms into when his counter reaches 0, with the ability to instantly devour anyone in the way of his charge. Assumedly eating people whole to absorb their Sharira into its body. A once honored monk now with clouded judgment, letting its greed take over. I am certain I pronounced 100% of what I said there completely incorrectly, and for that I'm sorry. Yes, the things that I said incorrectly includes the English words that I say all the time. It seems the Clouded Monk has since become a demon, one which shall never reach heaven, now regretting how he couldn't control himself. He likes insight, attachment, and repression, except unless that repression is specifically level 2 for some reason. He has some other weirdly specific quirks, like wanting to tour the disciplinary department every time he breaches, and breaking out when O05102 wanders by its door, which I guess could make sense, but we'll talk about it when we get there. And don't worry, he's also a WoW, so it won't take long. He got cast out of Nirvana. That's rough, buddy. Stop caring about my employees, they're expendable.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
Here's another tool abnormality. A metal cross that if you don't pray too long enough, you die. But if you pray for too long, you die. Also, every abnormality breaks out at once. Yeah, this is a pretty useless tool abnormality in my opinion. It could be nice to have against some ordeals or when keeping low-level working employees alive, but I'm not risking forgetting someone in its room and having my entire facility explode because of that. Do take it over the choo-choo train of doom though, even if that's not necessarily a high bar. I just realized I forgot to write into the script that this thing has a positive usage. As long as someone's praying to it, everybody in his department will get healed, both their health and sanity. So it definitely has its uses, but is it worth it? No. Awuga? Question mark? This abnormality is the best pianist on the planet. Whenever she's on the planet, that is. Sometimes she's on the moon, I guess. Whenever someone steps close to her piano, they start playing. This music being the most amazing tune they've ever heard. Even healing people in the facility. That person will then disappear. Where do they go? Probably the moon. She's classified as a non-escaping entity, even though she clearly does when you do too many performances and her counter reaches 0. Looking at this containment unit, I see the problem. They need to put the lady on the other side of that tape and the piano on the door's side. Such a simple, easy fix. She'd never get out that way. When she does get out via performances, an agent will play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata as she escapes for 90 seconds, returning home when the song concludes. Very cool character on all fronts. Thank you, Miss Luna, for forcing me to turn down stream volume whenever you break out. The angry broccoli is very high maintenance. Every time 5 abnormalities that aren't it get worked on without being worked on itself, it'll draw someone to its room and turn them into a Pikmin. Your job is to find those employees getting drawn to its unit and click on them until they're shaken out of it. It also turns people into a Pikmin on any work result. And when an agent is Pikmined, the anger broccoli will grow a bulb and that agent gets SP buffs and a higher work success rate. The broccoli will grow 5 bulbs and on the 5th bulb, it will then become purple, causing every one of the Pikmin to become a baby broccoli. These babies puffing out smoke that does sanity damage, and when the sanity of an employee is dropped to 0, because of this, they'll also become a Pikmin and run to a new room to proliferate. This can be a pretty devastating breach and could easily get out of hand if you're stupid. And unfortunately for me, terms apply. This thing could be worse, but the longer the days in this game get, the more likely you are to slip up and miss an employee as they go and become a Pikmin, making those later day runs agony to get good employees wiped out. It helps if there is a bulb that's attached to an employee that we don't care about, because you could just kill that employee and the bulb will go away. Eat your greens. Hey, that's kind of gross. Queen Bee is a clerk exterminator. It's very easy to make her mad, and when she's upset, she'll release billions of spores out of her body. Spores that will find their way into any nearby fauna's body and rapidly incubate. Agents report intense hunger and pain in the abdomen. After enough time has passed, the now grown adult bee will eat its way through the affected employee's neck, now on a genocide spree with the goal of killing and injecting pupa of their own into the bodies of other employees, creating a cycle of killing, then birthing more. It might sound scary, but these things are pretty weak and a couple high-level employees will wall them pretty hard. The same cannot be said for clerks though. They will reproduce the fuck out of your clerks, minus any sexy fun twist. If you get this thing and no clerk rights activist, this abnormality is nothing. But if you do have those pesky human rights workers, then you'll have to be extremely careful working with her. It should also be noted that your agents will also get spored, but they can survive this if they have enough health. If I had to guess why, it's because their bone, skin, and organ tissue are denser because of the Flintstones gummies that they ate before coming into work that day. And because of that density, the drones took a longer time to burrow through their body, giving their gummy-powered immune system enough time to wipe them clean. Remember to eat your gummies.
Apple.
Snow White's apple. It thought it was doomed to rot and die, having its eyes and skin eaten out by animals, those animals dying soon after. After some time, already decayed roots grew out of her and absorbed the nutrients of the dead animals, growing into a princess of its own right, a princess without a prince. On breach, she teleports to a random room and covers that room in thorns, slowing and damaging everyone that they touch, making Snow White's apple a real bitch to deal with on breach, so make sure to repress the fuck out of her quickly with ranged weapons. If you don't, she'll grow thorns that stay there until the end of the day, which is quite annoying to deal with. So thank you, Snow White's apple, for also standing. Hey, remember that one abnormality that hates it when you look at him? Yeah, this is the opposite. The containment unit is but a facade. Contain it in your sight. When you're not working on it, that's fine. It can be ignored. But when it is being worked on, keep it on your screen the whole way through. When it breaches containment and isn't in your sight, it will disappear to a random room and make incredibly quick work of your employees, hanging them high for all to see. I'd argue this is one of the most dangerous abnormalities to mismanage because look at how fast those deaths mount up. After it does escape, you have to find it very quickly, otherwise it's going to ransack a couple departments. Unlike Shy Keyhole Guy, who just becomes a minor inconvenience on breach, this thing is guaranteed to kill at least one agent if you keep your eyes off it too long. I see you, you bastard, looking at me. This guy is like express train to hell and is the bane of my existence, ending so many good runs solely due to the fact that I forgot to look at him. If you are forgetful and you have like a good run that you're planning to take far into the later days of the game, do not pick this guy. Do not make my mistake. It is not worth it. Shockingly, his favorite work isn't insight for the funny. For that, he's doomed to be... I can't say it. The word mid is too overused, and I actually think this guy's cool, so here. I'll even give you a little pillow to rest your eye stalk on, even though you are the bane of my existence.
Shark Week.
Autism spectrum disorder and ADHD with the side of substance abuse. The Dreaming Current is a baby shark boy that dreams of being free from the walls of the facility. It has an injection needle sticking out of its head, which could be the candy that, quote, lets him see the ocean. This abnormality kind of makes me sad. The logs describe a child with a learning disability that was orphaned because his parents thought he would die soon. He became a test dummy for psychoactive drugs that made him feel like running around on a rainbow ocean. When it breaches, it begins LARPing as a BMW. This is the fastest abnormality, barring the burrowing heaven, when not being looked at. Destroying anything in its wake before crashing and burning. It teleports between random hallways. You can tell which halls it's about to dart through with this rainbow liquid overlay. If someone's in a rainbow hall, they have mere seconds to leave before they get fucking atomized. This is one of those abnormalities that I can't help but feel sorry for. It doesn't deserve to be confined, but like the rules say, any kind of attachment at all towards the abnormalities is strictly forbidden. So instead of high tier, I'm putting him in mid tier. No high tier. He's a WoW that's way too easy to manage for mid tier, only freaking out when a Temperance level 1 employee enters his unit or when someone panics in his room. Thanks for that, champ. I guess I can't help but get attached. Time for the magical girls. There are 3 in total. 2 of them are fine, and the third is the Queen of Hatred. No, that's not an exaggeration. That's literally what she's called. This is the King of Greed. A magical lady trapped inside an egg, designed by the girl to keep herself sedated, knowing full well that if she wakes up, she'll transform into this thing that looks like it wants to offer SpongeBob and Patrick ice cream on their trip to Shell City. Greed begins as the simple desire for happiness, a desire that grows larger and larger, until eventually that's just not enough. The magical girl that was once a hero fell under the same spell and began eating more authority, money, fame, and many other forms of pleasure, eating away anything in her sight, leaving only visceral greed. When her counter hits 0, she'll teleport to a random hallway and sweep through it, devouring everything in her path in an instant, only being attackable from behind. Rogun, just stay there. You are a new hire that I expect way too much lob into. Come on, just wait just 1 second longer. Rogun? Rogan? Not so bad. Very cool, King of Greed. I should also mention that despite being a WoW tier, her weapon Gold Rush is A-Lift tier and is absolutely amazing, so fucking use it. Oh man. This one brings me pain. Hey, so you know how I talked about those abnormalities that really don't want clerks to die? Well, here's one that wants the opposite. Kill those clerks. Death be upon them. If you don't, she'll become a giant snake monster with a giant fuck-off laser beam that can wipe multiple departments in one shot, while also healing off the damage it's dealing. This laser beam having a 500 million% chance of angering every last clerk rights activist in your facility. To get around her minimum 3 death requirement per Qlifoth meltdown, you have to routinely pick off those clerks via execution bullets. And if you don't have execution bullets, like I did on my first playthrough, you have to go through the mind-numbing process of escaping an abnormality, letting them kill 3 clerks, and resuppressing them. This annoying my clerk rights abnormalities counters, but hey, that's a problem I had to deal with later in the day. So this is just one of the most high maintenance abnormalities, full stop, and one of the most hated in the community, right next to Choo Choo Charles. She does provide some good services though that isn't transforming into a snake and violating my managerial pride. Like whenever the second trumpet sounds, she'll break out not as a snake and starts whooping the abnormalities causing trouble. Now, to go on a quick subquest, because I just realized I haven't explained the trumpet system yet. Here's what you need to know. The more abnormalities that break out and the higher level those abnormalities that are breaking out are, the higher the emergency level, a system that the game calls trumpets, a reference to the biblical 7 trumpets in the book of Revelation. The first trumpet is when something is out, but who cares? Probably just punishing word again. The second trumpet is when multiple abnormalities break out and deaths are happening. This is the trumpet that the Queen of Hatred will help you fight. It'll also insta-breach Big Bird, who wants to save the employees of LobCorp. Of course, we all know what it means to be saved by the big guy. And finally, the third trumpet, which is the last that we're able to reach in-game, where the day is virtually unsalvageable. Like I said though, it can get worse than this. These are out of the game things that happen if we, as the player, didn't restart the day or rewind the memory repository. The fourth trumpet means that all hope is completely lost, the branch and your job is over. The fifth trumpet means that not only has your branch been destroyed, but abnormalities are now above ground, wreaking havoc outside. The sixth trumpet means utter destruction to L Corp as a wing, and the seventh, extinction of the human race. Survival of the human race is simply not feasible at this point, and this trumpet is a warning to everyone left that it's all going to be over soon. Give up. Anyways, Queen of Hatred is a neurodivergent hero that twisted good and evil with balance. If there's no evil in the facility, she becomes the evil that must be overcome. She questions her purpose if nobody's dying in the facility before eventually being impaled with her own spear and transforming. When she dies though, she returns to her old self. She is extremely vocal and will say different things depending on the threat level of who she's fighting. When she encounters an Aleph, for example, she'll say either, "Everyone get out of here! I'll protect everyone even if it means I have to die," or "It has the strength of a major arcana, and I'm alone in this, but I won't run away." Also, because of her relationship with the King of Greed and the Knight of Despair, she'll say something new to both of them. When facing the King of Greed, she'll say, "I'm sorry, Senpai. The only thing I can do is stop your rampage." And on victory, she'll say, "Senpai, if I had to face you outside, I'd totally be dead right now." When encountering the Knight of Despair, she'll say, "So you've been consumed too, Senpai. Can the cycle really not be stopped?" And on victory, "Senpai, I know you tried your hardest to hold it back." Her weapon is unique because it's the Kirby Star Rod and can deal all 4 damage types. Very cool. If you have execution bullets, she's a high tier, and if you don't, then she's a nightmare of a low tier. I'll put you in mid tier. Enjoy your spot among the villains. And a reminder that her snake form used to look like this. The Knight of Despair is, in my opinion, the easiest WoW, with extremely high rewards compared to relatively low risk. After realizing that, despite all her hardships, nothing was ever protected under her, she noticed things about the 2 other magical girls. The Queen of Hatred became evil after realizing there was no evil left in the world, and the King of Greed began to devour everything. She loves attachment, and she will grant the first good work result protection in the form of a blessing. I know it's supposed to be a shield, but it always registered to me as like a pants or shirt pocket. Anyone with a blessing can enjoy halved damage to all types besides Pale, and no work for the rest of the day. The Knight of Despair has 0 Qlifoth counter. The only way to get her to breach is to get the person with her blessing to die, which is pretty difficult, by the way. Out of shame for failing to defend once again, and in rage against the world, her swords now point to those she could not protect. This one is a nightmare to deal with when it breaks out with its long range and pale damage, but this abnormality only ever breaks out if everything else is already going to shit, so like, who cares? Get this abnormality and win, it's literally that easy. Even its equipment is really good, so she's the easiest WoW and just has the tastiest gifts, so wonderful. The Little Prince is a reference to the 1943 novel, a reference in only name, because very little about this guy applies to that story. If anything, he's more of a Terraria reference. The Little Prince is lesser liked among the abnormalities. Employees hate the way it churns out spores and find it revolting. Few people interact with it, making it a pretty lonely abnormality. Little Prince is a sad mushroom that is especially dangerous to more socially outcast employees, drawing them in with the promise of love and connection, making it so they go to it on their own will to become transformed. Lonely recognizes lonely. They say misery loves company, and that company can sometimes take them to a higher plane of existence. Hearing mushrooms speak it directly into their minds. Finally, a point of being even higher than Crab. The goal when managing this abnormality is to keep agents from growing attached. Don't send one agent in more than 5 times in a row. Every time an agent works with the prince, they'll get a hidden increment to a counter. Every time that agent interacts with the Shroom Prince consecutively, it increases. Whereas if they interact with another guy, it decreases. Just keep it from reaching 5. And if you don't, then that's fine. The mutant shroom isn't that hard to deal with. This is also one of those possession via glowing thing on the face that you have to click to stop abnormalities, just like the angry broccoli, but it's even worse because it looks like this blue cloud can be spread. All for another angry mushroom. And I'm allergic to mushrooms. I love worms, especially ones that crawl inside you. The Naked Nest is a game of RNG. You do instinct work, only do instinct work. And if you get a good work result, nothing will happen. If they take a small amount of damage and get a mediocre work result, something might happen. If you get a bad work result and took a lot of damage, then it's probably good to sacrifice that employee to prevent an outbreak of whatever these guys are. Them and their melty, strandy faces. The Naked Nest will worm its way in through even the pores of your skin, aiming to infect your frontal lobe and taking control. Those that have even a mild infection with a meager 30% of their brain controlled are already doomed, as the infection will influence their brain and actions. Keep infected employees away from healthy employees. Worm disease is extremely contagious. Just have high red defense on people that work with it and always spam instinct. It's so fine. Yin is awesome because he becomes fish. I think this suit also tickles my inner Monster Hunter fan because it's like black to orange koi fish scales, and I think that organic material animal to armor thing just really sits right with me. Yin is one half of a complete whole, being the dark half. It's also the abnormality that causes the clouded monk to breach, probably filling its mind with evil, selfish intentions. Selfish. The real tragedy of the story is that its ego equipment is called Discord. Ugh, so close to greatness. And Yin's other half, Yang, makes an appearance as, surprisingly, a tool abnormality, being the only tool abnormality that can breach, unless you consider manslaughter vehicularing multiple departments via locomotive a breach. But whatever. When these two meet, they can do just that, making an enormous dragon even bigger than the choo-choo train of doom to fly through the facility, messing with contained abnormalities and totally annihilating your run. The breach is also super annoying because you can suppress one fish, and if the other fish is still alive when that first fish is suppressed, then the suppressed fish will get back up and just be at full health again. So you have to kill them at the same exact time, and it's really, really annoying. Yang isn't receivable as an abnormality until you have Yin in the facility. And for the tool's effects, it heals an agent's SP and increases their resistance to white damage. But they can only hold on to Yang for 30 seconds before they both breach, making it almost completely worthless as a tool. For reference, I tried to record how they also go Dragon of Dojima form when a person carrying Yang enters Yin's containment unit, and my agent barely made it halfway there before they both breached. That 30-second limit makes this tool so worthless. Not worth it in my incredibly agreeable, humble opinion. Mid-tier because they're both still kind of cool at least, even if Yang is a literal meme. Yeah, so just imagine 30 of these things in one facility. Don't worry, it gets even worse. Now we have Noon ordeals that begin way before the Bria layer. Whoopsie, skin. The ordeal of Crimson Noon is the evolved version of the baby clowns, being an amalgam clown that roams hallways and attacks everybody that spawns the baby clowns upon death. This reminds me of the time I worked at an elderly care home in Pretoria, Africa, where they would have these clowns come in and entertain the elderly. There was one named Freaky Feral, the clown, that always came in late to do private shows with the people. One time I got curious to see what the special show was, so I installed Facebook and flayed my own flesh to tan in the sun, giving it an old, wrinkled look. Things took a turn when it actually got to the show. Come to find out, Freaky Feral was actually very pregnant and gave birth on my lap, leaving me with a child and a lifetime of therapy that could never even hope to undo the psychological damage that the experience tattooed on my cerebellum. The kid was sad, so I turned to him and told him, "Hey, cheer up," and handed him my emerald mining company. That kid would grow up to be Elon Musk. The ordeal of Green Noon is actually pretty scary if you're a little bitch and don't do enough damage to drop the robots in seconds. They have big guns which look intimidating and do a lot of damage, but literally just don't die. It's that easy. The ordeal of Violet Noon is the easiest Noon, which is crazy because this looks like it should be terrifying, right? Huge monoliths that drop into large rooms, instantly killing everyone and tentacling the fuck out of any survivors. So eloquently put, I know. Here's how to not die. You see that Violet Noon is going to happen, you lead everyone into a small room or hallway, send someone into a containment unit to trigger the Noon, watch as absolutely nobody of value dies by the spawn attack, and then send every agent back in to clean up. Boom, easy. You literally smell so good right now. The ordeal of Indigo Noon is unique because it's directly tied to in-universe lore. Earlier, I mentioned the back streets of L-Corp, the areas of the city outside of the Nest's care that are bloated with crime and poverty. Well, not only do the subhuman brokies that live there have to deal with that, but they also have to deal with the near infinite amount of these former human monstrosities that clean the back streets by consuming anything organic, dead or alive, from exactly 3:13 a.m. to 4:34 a.m.
Good job thinking you can live without the government's protection, idiot. Now give us more money, or your son will be the next to get swept.
The sweepers are talked about in Tifereth's backstory, how life as a child in the city is a living nightmare, as we can all probably guess. They make an appearance in the ordeal of Indigo Noon, being one of the few ordeals that are actually creatures from outside of the facility breaking in. They're definitely the most dangerous out of the Noon ordeals and the rarest, hurting a lot and gobbling up bodies to heal. If you can't overwhelm them in groups, then go for lone sweepers. They can really hurt if they attack all at once. The Ordeal of Amber Dusk is a re-revival of the Hungry Worms, taking the worms from goofy little pipsqueaks to holy geez, everybody's dying. Remember the King of Greed? Imagine there's 50 of those in the facility that move way faster. Yeah, that might be a little bit of an overstatement, but I don't care. The point is, once an Amber Dusk happens, all your clerks get nay-nayed. Deal with them the same way you would the King of Greed. Also, big guy spawns little guys because, of course it does. Hey guys, do y'all remember the clowns? They joined together once again into this enormous ball of clown and are now rolling around the facility. Please chase it down and kill it. That thing is terrifying. Chasing down Giga Clown is pretty annoying, but once you catch it, it really isn't that bad, so you can pulp it without a hassle and watch as it divides into the Noon Clowns, which then go on to divide into the Dawn Clowns. More so than anything, this guy is just a hassle. I love the design though, and I'm kind of sad that this is as high as the clowns go in terms of threat level. We do not have the Junkler come out for a midnight ordeal. The Ordeal of Green Dusk is a bunch of robot construction machines that spawn lesser iterations of themselves forever until they are destroyed. It's better to destroy them sooner rather than later. Green Dusk continues the trend of having the green ordeals being very goo goo gaga, who cares, machines are stupid, except for these ones. They're self-aware, and still maybe a little stupid. Coinciding with the game ramping up dramatically in difficulty, the story takes a dramatic turn, as it's revealed through a complicated process of time rewinding and memory erasing. You, the player character, are actually A. You are A. A is the front man behind the creation of Lobotomy Corporation, the person that built the set, that added the characters, that stationed himself as the director, and entrusted his assistant Angela with the script. After that, he died, but lives on as you, given the ability to rewind time to the first day thanks to T-Corp's time-controlling technology. Angela being programmed with the ability to track every last restart, being something of an outside observer, watching you make mistakes and set you on the right path to completing the script. If you'll recall, when you start off again on day 1, you'll get a unique loading screen with Angela. She's here because she's wiping everything clean and resetting the stage for the play to begin anew. Everything must go exactly according to the script, her singular goal. The reason why she comes across as so forward and cold to the Sephiroth and you is because she knows if she doesn't, the script won't be complete. Everyone will act awry and everyone will remain in this loop. Angela resynchronizes our memories and we get a glimpse of memories that A had with B and C. C talks about wanting to be someone wise in her next life, how she extracted a medicine from the human subconscious. That makes no sense, but you go, queen. We got some backstory where A is the creator of Angela but shuns her at every turn for some reason, and that B is a big ol' suck up. There's also a day where we get to chill in the grass with our bitch. Our sitch. Before it transitions to someone that looks like Malkuth in utter agony, just begging to be put down. This is one of the first mentions of the substance, Cogito. But before I talk about the substance Cogito, let's talk about Atsiluth, the emanation layer of the Tree of Life and the bottom layer of the facility. Angela never ventures this far down into the facility, as the Sephiroth here are not only the most intense, but are also completely cognizant of their situation. Bina in the Kabbalah is understanding, the analytical mind. I pronounce it Bina because it sounds like pineapple. Here she's a super intense, deeply sadistic robot that smiles while subjecting everyone and herself to mind-destroying horror. She also speaks in nothing but deep metaphors and never gives a straight answer, which is so helpful when you're just meeting her and have no idea what she's hexagoning out about. Bina, using deep metaphors, describes 3 important things: the bucket, the well, and the river. The bucket is Cogito, the well is the subconscious mind, and the river is what gets withdrawn. Removing the metaphor goggles, Bina uses the Cogito substance and injects it into a person. When this Cogito comes into contact with their brain and that person's ego, it draws out their subconscious mind and manifests it into a new, tangible form. In other words, an abnormality is extracted. That abnormality is then classified. At the end of a successful workday, you'll be brought to a screen with 3 shaking containment units, each containing a different abnormality. On the first encounter, it'll show their subject classification. The subject classification system is broke up into 3 parts. The first letter being the source of inspiration. Some abnormalities, like T, were born from trauma. An employee that suffered from severe arachnophobia might give birth to the spider bud. Or someone that should have been put down the old-fashioned way might give birth to the choo-choo train. Or instead of trauma, they can be born from fairy tales, originate from outside the corporation, or were so generously donated by people that gave the developers money. After the dash, the next 2 numbers describe an abnormality's form. 01 means they possess human-like characteristics. 02 if they resemble animals. 03 if they seem otherworldly or religious. 04 if they're inanimate objects. 05 for machines and artifacts. 06 if they represent something more abstract and don't really have a form, they're just kind of there, they're just kind of something that exists, mostly relying on the perception of human beings. 07 for specifically the funny white fish, 08 for something not in the game, 09 for tools, and 00 for my special little fella. The third number represents the order in which the abnormality was extracted from the human subconscious. That is how abnormalities are created. These things aren't otherworldly monsters gathered into one place for study. They're people, they're our fears, our imagination, our desire to put our OC into a video game. They're us. And sometimes when the extraction process goes wrong, like the Cogito not being correctly administered, an ordeal is created. Ordeals are like abnormalities in that they manifest themselves, only they have the ability to manifest themselves whenever they want. Waiting outside of our world until the time is right, and then getting real. With the only countermeasure that we have against them being that they could be predicted by the Qlifoth counter. Okay, so that's Bina, just letting you all know. This was translated from like super heavy metaphors and like 14 Reddit explanation posts, and I'm still certain I've got like 99% of that wrong. So if you're still curious about abnormality extraction, look for the Project Moon fans screaming at me in the comments. And if you can't find that comment, then make up fake lore and put that in the comments instead. I know everything that I said is like a 70% accurate and that's still a passing grade, so I'm moving on. Hokma! Hokma balls doesn't even make any sense. It was never a funny joke. Why do people force it so much? I don't get it. It makes me so sad. Hokma in the Kabbalah is wisdom. And if you take one look at this guy and the room he's in, then you'll probably agree. Hokma is similarly cognizant of the circumstances like Bina, but unlike Bina, he is not a total bitch and actually cares about A. Hokma is the one in control of time in Lobotomy Corp, and is the entire reason why we can stop time midday to figure out what our best course of action is. He's also the one in charge of the employees and judges you harshly when you name an employee something awful like femboy nodder. Please don't frown subtly at me, Hokma, I didn't mean it. He shows you potentially the craziest thing about L Corp yet, how completely meaningless life and death is in the facility, giving you an exercise where you bring a 10 years deceased woman back to life, just to kill them again. Time, life, death, everything is meaningless here. And now that we're down to the final layer with the final Sephiroth, this seems like a logical place to talk about the tip top of the food chain. The Alephists. Don't choose this. Just don't. This is my first Aleph, an abnormality that I was delighted to see. A new Zion. Wow. I thought I had all the Zions. Wait, why did he give me like 90 PE boxes? Oh, whoops. 15 clerks died in my facility and he split into 4 different Alephs in random places around the facility. Uh-oh. He does huge damage to anything he's passively in the room with. That's not so good. And now he's in the main room. Huh. What's he gonna do? Salute me and explode into a black heart-shaped mushroom cloud, decreasing Qlifoth counters, letting out terrible Alephs, and insta-panicking all the clerks in that department? That's unfortunate. All because only 15 clerks died, by the way. And as just a reminder, clerks will die if they swallow their spit incorrectly. The only saving grace to get Army in Black happy again is to recontain another abnormality. Stop resisting, Rudolta. Pink Heartman is feeling a little sad today. I'll say it right here. I think Army in Black is the abnormality that caused me the most problems out of any of them, besides maybe the train and the eyeballs. So you get that trauma benefit as well. You can tell Army in Black to protect an employee, which is actually really good. but that also drops its Qlifoth counter by 1, and if the target of its protection is level 3 or lower, it will just possess them with love and kindness. 2 qualities that will not be tolerated in our beautiful corporation. As expected, this abnormality is an A-lift, so his equipment is rightfully insanely broken. Every endgame Lobotomy Corp player equips their whole agency, and specifically A-lift equipment because of how absurd it is. And Army in Black is no exception to that rule, with a very high white damage long-range gun, with a gift that increases the damage even further. Unfortunately, the gifts of A-lifts are very hard to come by, most of them being a 2% chance to receive after a completed work. My rant is way overblown because only a couple decent agents equipped with full WoW gear could comfortably take down one breaching A-lift Army in Black. So it's not that terrible to have him breach, but look, you gotta believe me. This guy caused me so many resets, maybe even more than the train. I can't help but want him to rot in F tier. Now don't get me wrong, right? I like feet. Toes, heels, mwah. Can't get enough of them. But when they drag me across the entire planet into their core, I get simply too excited. When I entered its containment unit, I couldn't help but throw myself into its core to be reborn as a star, and I like birth. The blue star, plain and simple, is the most powerful abnormality when it comes to possession. Temperance level 3 or lower employees will immediately throw themselves into the heart, and so will any employee that takes 60 seconds or longer to complete work on it. Qlifoth counter at a max of 2 will lower whenever someone takes too long, or when someone with prudence below level 5 works on it. Reserve work with this thing only for the best of the best agents. And when it does breach, only agents with high temperance and prudence can be in the room with it. Low temperance and prudence agents will be sucked into the core immediately. When it's out, it produces a huge shockwave from its core that spans the entire facility, doing big white damage and sucking everybody that panics facility-wide into its core, only disappearing when its massive 2,200 health drops to 0, where it'll then become just the core and fall sadly to the ground. Its ego weapon, apart from being one of the best white damage dealers in the game, increases damage as the using employee takes damage. And the suit has the ability to heal every employee in a room just a little bit. A-lift ego gear are the most powerful types, and as such, they require the most calm-minded, physically strong, and mentally sound personnel to use. Those that make up 0.1% of the world. The people that are uncommon among the uncommon. People like Hagward and My Hero Academia Rule 34. I like. This is by far the most visually horrifying creature ever. Any talks about it need to be reserved for specifically level 5 employees. Bearing witness to this thing is enough to invoke horrible feelings. The employees unfortunate enough to work with it are told that if they begin to suffer from a surge of intrusive thoughts, or decide to count down from 10 but fail to remember what 10 even is, or feel an uncontrollable regurgitation of vomit or saliva, or if this place starts to feel like somewhere else other than the company, or if they suddenly feel insignificant and think that suffocating is your only hope, then they need to get the fuck out of Censored's containment unit. Censored reminds me a lot of the Call to Cthulhu. Something so incomprehensibly vile that even the tiniest, most fleeting, inconsequential glimpse through an extremely filtered camera lens will instantly send the viewer into hysteria. Many managers had to be replaced from what they saw, even when the cognition filter was at the max possible setting where only the most basic shapes were visible. The thing cannot be described. There is no language for such abysms of shrieking and immemorial lunacy, such eldritch contradictions of all matter, force, and cosmic order. Let's talk about fear. When a low-level agent encounters an HE abnormality, they'll feel significant fear and take sanity damage. Whereas when a high-level agent encounters an HE abnormality, they won't be afraid at all and take no fear damage. The fear damage going from level 1 to level 4, where an overwhelmed employee instantly loses their mind. Level 5 employees can't be made afraid, so why does a level 5 agent immediately feel hopeless at the sight of Censored? This is one of the harder abnormalities that caused a lot of resets for me, as the fear damage more than halved my best agent's sanity, though eventually I stumbled upon a strategy. I took my Censored agent and had them interact with the portrait of another world, then sent them into work so that the work damage would transfer to the other person. It isn't pretty, but it gets the job done. As you could probably guess, the fear thing also applies outside of his containment unit when it goes horse mode. Just like when it's contained, only level 5 agents can perceive it without going insane. So only the most powerful of your squad can even begin to raise their weapons at it. That's too bad that it endures every damage type except Pale. Now if that isn't insane enough, when it kills someone, it will heal itself and plant a piece of itself in them, striking a pose and creating another smaller censored. That's not all. These things will increase the fear damage dealt to employees, making it strictly impossible to enter a room with censored and 2 minions, even to level 5 employees. Into the religious trauma blender they go. This thing is one of the few abnormalities that must be contained, no matter what the cost. With a max counter of 2, they don't make it easy. And if it drops 1, there is only one way to bring it back up. The same wheel used for Nameless Fetus is back, here to keep a much more dangerous abnormality appeased with a blood sacrifice. Sadly, Censored has no suit, but does have a fantastic weapon that heals 40% of its damage dealt. This is an aside, but my god, the LobCorp fan wiki is horny. Everyone in the fandom wiki thinks he's a giant shape-shifting penis that sexes employees to reproduce, but I guess to be fair, the censorship on that log doesn't do it any favors. I think it's a genius way to make people assume the worst, which is probably just what the embodiment of Fear Monster wants. I like him. Remember the naked nest? How I said that was the most contagious abnormality? Yeah, I'd like to rephrase that. The naked nest is the most contagious wow. The most contagious abnormality is a title that belongs to Melting Love, the slime girl whose bathwater becomes a deadly weapon. Just like Censored, this one is best sat out. When an employee works with her, she'll give them a little slimy heart that heals their sanity and periodically makes little pink slime explosions. These explosions having a 25% chance to infect people in the area. And just like that, it should be clear why this abnormality is such a nightmare. Every single clerk in the area must go, and the person that has the heart must be quarantined. My method is to execute every clerk and to tuck the agent away in an elevator. When her counter hits 0, she'll change from anime wife to goop monstrosity. With her, every infected employee will then become a pawn in her army. She will fight alongside them and even heal off them, herself being immune to physical damage. She has a special bond with the employee she blessed, and if they die, she'll become enraged and become an even bigger bitch. A-lifts aren't all the biggest headache to deal with. The only question left now is, would I? This is not an Among Us reference. This is not an Among Us reference. Not an Among Us reference. Not Among Us. Meet nothing there. Out of all the A-lifts in the game, this is the most famous. That's right, this is the guy of Lobotomy Corp. Every A-lift in this game is so amazingly unique in the way that it wreaks havoc on the facility. Army in Black frees your abnormalities, Blue Star uses mass possession, Censored uses fear, Melting Love uses contagion, each of which being things that we've seen from lower level abnormalities to lesser effect, but nothing there uses something entirely new. Deception. Deception and transformation. Taking inspiration from the classic horror movie, The Thing. And not the other thing. Nothing there seeks to break out using agents as a shell. It'll also escape if an employee with low justice enters its containment unit. This abnormality is terrifying to the corporation because unlike the others, nothing there doesn't outwardly show what it does, what it wants, or what exactly it's capable of. It sits there and observes, figuring out exactly how this person acts, figuring out exactly how this person conducts themselves. Upon a bad work result, it'll kill and take the form of the agent and start mimicking human behaviors, saying nice things like, I love you, over and over again.
I love you.
Just like Melting Love, nothing there's completely immune to physical red damage, as long as it's in its true form. If it breaks out disguised as an employee, you have one shot to shoot the disguised nothing there. Shooting him with a bullet, dealing 10,000 red damage, instantly controlling the situation. The more likely situation is that you don't find him in the allotted 10 seconds, and you now have to fight one of the most difficult A-lifts in the game. The Amalgam Dog runs fast, hits hard, and has a lot of health. But then, he becomes an egg. An egg that heals off all damage dealt in dog phase. And then, the egg hatches, transforming its limbs into insanely powerful weapons, shooting bone shards that silently rip an entire room apart, and his most deadly attack, turning his arm into a huge blade.
Goodbye.
The dog's equipment is called Mimicry, and the de facto best red damage and red resistance in the game, with an emphasis on healing. A healing isn't as good as Censored's weapon, but it's still fantastic. Despite how scary as I might have made it sound, nothing there in my experience hasn't been that difficult to keep contained. If he's broken out, then that's usually a restart, yeah, but I always designate a person as a nothing there tank that can usually be trusted to get through the workday while consistently working with him. I like the dog. The Mountain of Smiling Bodies. One day, a large group of people were sealed into a chamber with multiple breaching abnormalities. What do you know? They all died. Normally, the cleaning of bodies happens almost overnight, but because those abnormalities continued to breach, they couldn't get in there to do it. And so the mountainous pile of bodies was left to rot. That rotting caused the bodies to fuse. They fused and smiled, now taking the form of a loathsome monster. This log ending with the person recording it swallowing a large bomb. The mountain is coming for him. Maybe that will keep it from killing anymore. Can't get a more imposing name or story than that. And that's really something because in my opinion, this is the second least threatening A-Lift right behind Blue Star. This is the de facto clerk rights activist because the smell of 10 bodies will drop its counter, or if an agent steps into its unit will hurt. If it breaks out, this might be the easiest A-Lift to contain as long as you get to them early enough. The more it's left to its own devices, the more clerks and low-level agents it will eat, and the more segments it will amass, becoming an actual massive screaming vomiting threat at 3 segments. At this point, that's basically a reset. Its puke does so much damage. Continuing with the A-Lift thing of filling in different roles, the Mountain of Smiling Bodies is the most simple, being just sheer aggression. Kinda like Forsaken Murderer's final form. Have a good fortitude worker with high prudence assigned to him and bask in all those tasty A-Lift boxes. Just like the angry Dongo creature, people that wear a suit heal by eating dead bodies. Finally, some good fucking food. We only have 3 abnormalities left to talk about. And these last 3, while not being the most popular to hate, are, generally speaking, the worst of the worst. Each of which having the ability to wipe your entire facility and control time itself, disabling your ability to speed up, slow down, or even pause. And right here we have the self-proclaimed composer of Lobotomy Corporation, here to play the music of the apocalypse, surrounded by his hoes. Here's what you need to know about the Silent Orchestra. If you get a good work result, his counter drops. If you get a bad work result, his counter also drops. If you want your facility to survive, always aim for those low work results. Not common or very low, just regular low, and hope you get lucky with a normal work result. Wait, that probably sounded hard to follow. I mean, normal work result, like after you get done with working with it and you see the happy, sad, or neutral face, you want that to be neutral. But you want to do the work that has a low success rate. If you want your facility to survive, always aim for those low results. Not common or very low, just regular low, and hope you get lucky with a normal work result. Upon breach, it begins a performance with 4 movements and a finale, with each movement stepping up the intensity and damage. The first movement, it's immune to all damage except pale. The second, immune to all but black. Third, all but white. And fourth, all but red. Oh, and by the way, if it gets to the 4th and you have survivors, all the energy you collected in the day will be gone. You're welcome. And the finale, where it's immune to all damage. All its hoes are present and it sends a massive shockwave through the entire facility. Oh yeah, did I mention that its attacks damage your whole facility? I'm sorry, I was too busy crying about my fucking energy being wiped. Now I gotta go see the foot god again. Wait, that's a bad thing? His equipment is hard as fuck, look at this. And the gift combined with the suit makes an employee completely immune to all white damage, which is absurd. Yeah, that's pretty cool. There is no full stop immunity in this game, except for this. Thank you for that, mister. In summary, this is one of those abnormalities that you'll want because of its absurd ego, and for every other moment, you'll either be too stacked to care, or you'll be neglecting him out of fear that he's gonna breach and flay your facility with the power of music. There is not a single other sound in this planet that makes my heart drop more than... Yeah, it's this guy again. Where to even begin with White Knight? With the deception of nothing there, the control of Blue Star, the abject horror of Censored, the infection of Melting Love, the intangibility of the Silent Orchestra, with the power to heal and brute force its way through everything like the Mountain of Smiling Bodies, White Knight is deservedly the most dangerous abnormality, turning its 12 apostles from before into 12 different A-Lift level threats, each of them alone being able to go head to head with other A-Lifts and 9,000,000% of the time winning. The best part, if they do happen to fall, White Knight with his whopping 12,000 health will instantly heal them back to full. White Knight is the Antichrist, bearing the mark of the beast around its neck and a halo crown of thorns, here to collect its 12 disciples who will learn from it and receive miracles from it, even being called Lucifer in the game's files. Just like Jesus, one of the disciples is a betrayer, the 12th that didn't fully become an angel but still wears the mask of an apostle. With them, you can do only one thing: pray. Confess thy sins. And there's nowhere else to do that but in front of our favorite emoji. When the betrayer confesses their sins, one sin will totally bone White Knight, doing consistent 666 pale damage. Damage that, if you remember, is linked to a being's soul. White Knight will be defeated, leaving the apostles to skewer themselves, before being likewise boned like their savior. After the transformation, Plague Doctor will cease to exist and instead appear as White Knight, now an abnormality in containment. This is the most high maintenance guy out of them all. This is the only non-tool abnormality that drops its Qlifoth counter based on how much real-world seconds have passed. That's right, it shares an attribute with the Pain Locomotive. What a good sign. Just like Censored, White Knight has a new fear level in Reverence, making only level 5 agents capable of working on it, lest they suffer the mind-breaking force of witnessing Ra, the biblically accurate angel. If the person doing work with White Knight gets a good work result, White Knight will be pleased and his counter will raise back up. He also has the courtesy of healing everybody facility-wide. If not worked with for too long though, he will choose 12 disciples at random in Advent again, taking away your pause feature and forcing you to watch his disciples rip and tear through your beloved employees once more. White Knight's gear is called Paradise Lost, a reference to the story of Adam and Eve, equipment that is full stop some of the best, period. With the suit being the best in the entire game, even outright canceling weaker attacks. And while it does have a weapon, you can't receive it by conventional means. How do you get it? By defeating White Knight, without the help of one sin. So if 12,000 health and dealing a shit ton of pale damage aside, as well as having a ton of other top tier Aleph threats roaming your facility, each of which being your own unsavable controlled employees. On top of having 2 static guards that never leave his room that receive constant health from him, on top of being extremely resistant to all types of damage and outright healing from white damage, yeah, that fucking blows. Here's what you can do. Assign 12 agents to a day, dispose of 11 via execution bullets, and then with the last agent selected, right-click on the We Can Change Anything machine. When White Knight naturally gets angry via his neglect mechanic, your selected agent should turn into an invincible false apostle. When that happens, order them to enter the We Can Change Anything machine. You should still have the We Can Change Anything machine selected, so just click on your agents tab and they should go right in. Congratulations, you now have real infinite energy. Using your infinite energy, you can now go to your favorite German man for a little commission. See where I'm going with this. Commission his tasty German ass to shoot at White Knight and do it again, and again, and again. Listen, nobody said it would be an easy process. What matters is that you have Paradise Lost, unequivocally the best pale damage weapon in the game, and beyond that, arguably the best weapon, period. I don't know, this next abnormality that we're about to talk about has one that's pretty good. I'd say they're equal, they're like on the same plane. Once you have the abnormality defeated and back in its containment unit, pause the game and select Rewind to Memory Repository. This will save all your employees and let you keep your sweet, sweet prize. Good job, you lamed out God and wasted 45 minutes of your life like a real gamer god. That thing will come in handy because wowee, we have a long road still ahead of us.
Birds now as one looked around to find the monster, but couldn't find it. There were no creatures, no sun and no moon, and no monster. All that is left is just a bird and the black forest. The prophecy has been fulfilled. No sun, no moon can be found over that forest. Just a terrible beast.
When 2 of the 3 birds breach containment, the 3rd will breach and head towards a doorway. This doorway an opening to the Black Forest. There the birds will converge and transform into Apocalypse Bird, a hulking monster with 330,000 health. And with each of the bird's signature moves dealing huge damage to your whole facility. Upon the arrival of the bird, 3 eggs will follow, and these eggs are how you really suppress the abnormality. Keep in mind, Small Beak's egg absorbs and heals off of red damage. Long Arms pale and Big Eyes black. Destroying an egg means removing the corresponding bird's ability from Apocalypse Bird, so my strat is to get rid of Long Arms and Big Eyes as soon as possible, later finishing off Small Beak. Keep in mind, Apocalypse Bird will be rampaging through your facility and you won't be able to pause. People will die during this, especially if there's clerk rights activists slinking around the place. The first course of action is to destroy the Long Arms Bird egg, sending any pale damage dealers to Big Bird. Long Arms has 9,900 health and his ability keeps you from pausing time. It should be obvious by now that being able to stop time and carefully plan things out is everything in this game, especially when it comes to Apocalypse Bird, so taking care of this egg is top priority. A head that looked up to the cosmos has been lowered. Next priority is Big Eyes, who will do what Big Bird normally does and hypnotize people into coming close for death. Big Bird is only able to make people come to him that are in his darkness, but when it's Apocalypse Bird, the entire facility is dark, so anybody's at risk. The far-sighted eyes of Big Bird have been blinded. Finally, Little Beak. His mouth attack is going to hurt if Apocalypse Bird teleports to a room with your agents in it, but if all that's left is the mouth, you can destroy this egg with patience. And Little Bird's mouth that devours everything has been shut. The twilight was endured, and we now face towards dawn, as the birds twittering in the forest finally stopped. All survivors of Apocalypse Bird get a free broken ego gift that rivals White Knight's, with a weapon that deals every damage type and a suit that makes its wearer deal even more damage as their health gets lower. Also doing passive black damage to any enemies to the person in the suit. Busted as fuck. Everyone say thank you, funny birds. Along with A-list, we also have Midnight Ordeals, which are ordeals nobody should ever encounter based on how awful they are. The Ordeal of Amber Midnight is a rough one because it has 2 giant worm heads popping into rooms and chomping up everyone, before spawning in a ton of Amber Dusks, which then spawn Amber Dawns. I don't need to tell you how much of a nightmare this ordeal is. Literally look at the carnage that's unfolding on your screen right now. At the end of this day, only 2 people survived. What a load of poppycock. The Ordeal of Green Midnight introduces the Last Helix, an enemy with 22,000 health, making it the tankiest enemy right behind Apocalypse Bird. The Helix spawns in and does a massive fuck you clockwork sweeping beam of the entire facility that kills every clerk that somehow survived up until midnight. That's pretty scary, but it's still a green ordeal, so it's still the easiest ordeal color. Take all your agents, put them in the elevator, and when the beam is about to pass through and melt everyone's skin, have them go down to a lower floor and be completely unharmed. Then laugh as you slowly shred the last helix until nothing remains. This concludes the green ordeals, leaving them as the easiest ordeal in literally every category. Thanks, Robo. The ordeals of Violet Dawn and Noon were some of the easiest ordeals to get, so the developers at Project Moon decided, you know what? I don't want the players to have fun, actually, and made Violet Midnight. This random event somehow makes Apocalypse Bird look like a little baby asking for his rattle. It's ridiculous how difficult they made Violet Midnight. What does it do? It's called the God Delusion and spawns 4 monuments of every damage type. These monuments having insane attacks that spawn absolutely everywhere in the facility. Like the pale one's eye that shreds everything in front of it. The white one's tentacle that is comedically unfair with how big the area of attack the tentacle has. The red and black with their fast, straight shot claw and thorn that are comparatively easier to avoid than the tentacle and eye, but that doesn't matter when they fucking kill everyone instantly. By the way, they all attack at the same time. You're welcome. Also, they heal if someone attacking them has their damage type.
You're welcome again.
Hey, at least at no point in the game are you forced to fight this thing. Yeah, it would never do something like that. Like, no way. On day 38, Angela admits something to the player. That every single last drop of energy collected in their time was not given out to supply the city, but instead kept inside of the corporation. She also thanks you for giving her the script for the metaphorical play that you and her are doing, before having a rare moment where she opens her eyes and hints at her own free will, a story beat that will go nowhere. And on day 41, she talks about a technology called singularities. Every wing has its own singularity. These being a fantastical piece of technology patented by that wing and used to do physics-defying things. T-Corp controls time. R-Corp is home to the rabbits and uses cloning. P-Corp is preservation, and our own L-Corp with their singularity, Cogito. The ability to reach inside the subconscious mind and pull out a creature that wants to burrow into your skin and use your flesh as a shell. These are also the last few days you can talk to Lady Angela, and her grudge against you is as clear as ever. But she's fulfilled her duty as a machine, and thus we move on to back to these guys because we gotta beat the trauma out of them. As it would turn out, the abnormalities are the very least of our troubles in this game. You see, every single Sephira that we've touched on, just like you, is also a reborn person. A person that, because of you and C, have sustained some real heavy trauma. Trauma that will inevitably rear its sinister head no matter what. And upon their mission's completion, every Sephira will have a meltdown called a core suppression. These are Lobotomy Corp's boss fights that give you fantastic rewards in return for being really fucking hard. Starting off with Malkuth. Before she was Malkuth, she was Elijah. Elijah is a venerated figure in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The name itself meaning Yahweh is my God, which in this case, Yahweh could be referring to either A or C. Elijah was one of the first Cogito experiments, and given that they had no idea what its effects would be or the correct dosage, she fucking died, describing it now in her Sephira form as knowing true helplessness. So for her meltdown, she aims to make you similarly helpless by remapping your controls. Heh, that's funny. The control team captain takes away your control. They should make every core suppression like this. That would make me hit the like button, since everything in this Roblox experience has to be wrapped up in like 70 layers of symbolism and deep metaphor. I despise this game. Now we're at the point in the video where I can really drive home how stupid hard this game is. Here's what you're supposed to do for Malkuth. Every new Qlifoth meltdown level, the 4 work types are rebound to another work type. So using the skull emoji, the bird of justice, and some other who cares baby abnormality, do random who cares work types with them, and then grab a literal physical piece of paper out to write what it got rebound to. From there, you're playing a normal day of Lobotomy Corp. It sounds so easy, but to me, it took 3 separate streams to understand the gimmick. Once the gimmick was figured out though, it only took me like 8 minutes to beat, and the honorable sacrifice of Mr. Beast. Good job, big man. No, I will not be buying Lunchly. Malkuth was overlooked, and because of that, she worked harder than everybody else, including being one of the first volunteers to the experiment that would end up costing her her life. Tragically and coincidentally, dying in the shadow of the person that she was trying to get attention from. And now, after an incomprehensible number of years that the player character doesn't remember, both Malkuth and A were able to face that memory together. And Malkuth gains the will to stand up straight. Time for 8 more of those. Lamau. Here in plain text, we finally see the true end goal of Lobotomy Corp. Redeem yourself to all your friends and collect a fuck ton of energy to nurture the seed of light to 100%. This seed is the true reason why all the energy is being stored instead of being sent out into the city. C's plan was to cure the disease of mankind. Everybody in this world had no purpose. And instead of filming a bunch of shitty motivational videos and uploading them to her YouTube channel, she instead elected to force the light into their hearts, using this tree of light. The true reason why all the energy produced is being stored inside the corporation. Before he was Yesid, he was Gabriel, and also just as much of an OCD germaphobe as he is when he doesn't have a metal body. Gabriel is venerated in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and is an archangel with the power to communicate God's will to humanity. His name meaning literally, God is my strength. His job was to ensure the safety of the Cogito experiments, and After seeing Elijah fucking eat it, he went insane with the workplace safety, covering himself from head to toe to prevent bacterial infection, and also he began scratching at his skin relentlessly. The scratching being enough of a cause for concern to have him forcibly medically examined. Nothing was found though, and he was left to scratch until he tore his own throat out. He has the easiest core suppression by far. As the leader of the information team, he kneecaps you by reducing the information you see, by pixelating everything to the point where everything is illegible and you can only see really basic shapes and colors. By this time though, you should be pretty comfortable with discerning the basic shapes of things, especially nothing there in White Knight breaching in succession. But that time doesn't count because those guys suck. So it really only took one attempt. After suppressing Yesed, he's given the rationality to maintain discretion, which sounds like something I would put on my 7th grade research paper if I wanted to sound smart. Hod! Wait, why is everybody screaming? Don't worry guys, we got the happiness machine, it's okay, she can't do anything. Before she was Hod, she was Michelle. And Michelle is just as much of a dumb bitch. I couldn't really find any biblical origin for the name Michelle, but a similar name that is in the Bible is Michael. Michael is an archangel that is supposedly the protector of the church. Does that make sense with this character? No, not really. She did betray the church though. Michelle was a timid employee during the original Cogito experiments, and after seeing Elijah's horrific death, she sold the group out to the head. This betrayal being something she dearly regretted because the head would send a fucking arbiter that would go on to liquidate everyone. An arbiter that we are very familiar with at this point. This is one of the most infamous core suppressions based on how many people that popped into my chat and warned me how she'll be hell on earth. Newsflash, sunshine! I beat her on my first try. She was the easiest core suppression, and it's all thanks to this little gizmo right here. Hod, as captain of the training team, sort of untrains the agents by lowering their stats. This is bad. At least, it could be, if you didn't have a funny little doohickey that could completely reverse her efforts. This suppression ended up taking me only 15 minutes, with only one death. And when you know it, that one death was caused by that fucking train. But that's fine. Truth be told, Hod would be a nightmare, but this machine is the perfect counter. When she's beaten, she realizes that, hey, maybe selling out all my closest friends and coworkers to get squad wiped wasn't the nicest action. So she picks herself up, apologizes, and attains the hope to be a better person. She also gives what I think is the best core suppression reward in having every single new hire start out with all their stats at level 3, making every single new hire a level 4 agent. Actually broken. Before he was Netzach, he was Giovanni, the Hebrew name meaning God is gracious. Giovanni and A never really had that much in common, so they rarely talked. But he was good friends with C, with this cutscene being my first exposure to her real name, Carmen. When Carmen died, A convinced Giovanni that she could be revived with Cogito. He just needed to find the right dosage. This being a tremendous lie, and Giovanni would quickly die. A knew he couldn't revive her from the start. Giovanni was only a test dummy to find the correct dosage. Here in his machine form, he tries to overdose on enkephalin, and from that, the core suppression begins. Netzach's suppression is simple. No healing. None. You can't use healing bullets. Your main Hall healer doesn't work. All damage is permanent until the next Qlifoth meltdown level, where then everyone gets healed simultaneously. In short, the game forces you to take everything at a snail's pace and carefully weigh every option. Did you know Netzach in his life was a DJ? This is never stated anywhere in the video game. I can only make that assumption based on how much his soundtrack bumps. It doesn't take that much effort to readapt to the game where you can't heal, so Netzach ends up really not being hard. After his failed suicide attempt, he recognizes that there's no escape from his duty as leader of the safety department. And instead of trying again to turn back around and escape, he instead gains the fearlessness to keep on living. Tifereth B has foundational issues with being turned into a machine, needing to constantly be crushed and replaced due to numerous errors and bugs. Errors that show up sooner and sooner with every replacement. This has led Tifereth B to be a hollow, empty shell with very little semblance of the original person behind the machine. And because of that, Tifereth A is none too pleased. Before being known as Tifereth, they were Lisa and Enoch, two children from the outskirts of the city, taken back and sheltered on Carmen's request. Enoch would tell Lisa about how much he doesn't like his life and how he was approved to participate in the upcoming Cogito experiments. Uh-oh. That's not good. And he tells Lisa about how he wants to talk to her again in another life. Maybe in the next life, things would be different. The Cogito experiments would commence, and ascertainably, ya boy didn't make it very far. He participated in the experiment, and he fucking died in the place of Carmen. Something Lisa would remind Carmen of a lot, and kicking off Enoch's death loop that he is only vaguely aware of, continually making the same exact promise that in the next life, things would be different. Now Tifereth is here on a pile of dead Tifereths, orchestrating the song of their hometown. This is colloquially known as the easiest core suppression to do by the community, and just like how Hod was easy, this one took me multiple attempts, and the one that was successful was over half an hour full of nail-biting stress and careful planning, because it forces you to go up to meltdown level 10, which is just the right amount of time to give me 4 fucking Violet Midnights in a row. It's not like a guaranteed Violet Midnight, I just kept getting so incredibly screwed by the game's RNG. Keep in mind, every time I saw that a Violet Midnight prior to this was gonna happen, I would start over because it's just that ridiculous. This is a 66% chance for me not to get a Violet Midnight, and yet here we are once again. This isn't quite a fearsome mom moment, but it still hurts. It also draws attention to Lobotomy Corp's balancing mechanics. The fact that people genuinely recommend you restart the day after making it this far, seeing you get a Violet Midnight, really says something. It's a problem because even if I did get a Green Midnight or Amber Midnight and won, I won't feel like I overcame an incredible obstacle. I would instead feel like I just got lucky because I didn't get a Violet. After being thoroughly convinced in no uncertain terms that the path to heaven went through a Violet Midnight, I finally gave in and bit the bullet. Violet Midnight is called an outer god in the game's files. And you know what? I ended that day with 2 deaths. 2 deaths. I am losing my goddamn mind. As the god delusion crumbles and we escape with our lives, Tifereth A finally accepts the fact that Tifereth B will be eternally resurrected, having his soul rot more and more with every rebirth. But this time, she genuinely holds on to the idea that maybe, at the end of these cycles and with the help of the manager, maybe the next life will be different, gaining the expectation of the meaning of existence. Before he was She said he was Daniel. Daniel meaning God is my judge. In the book of Daniel, he interprets dreams and receives apocalyptic visions. Here, he's a rich high society boy that, due to his knowledge, could have made it into any wing in the world, but chose Lobotomy Corporation. What a big ol' mistake that was. When the Arbiter sent by the head arrived, he was the first to greet her, and the last to be killed by her. Now in this metal body, he sits there and takes it as Angelo and Gebra say nasty things to him, making sure the viewer knows in no uncertain terms that She said is a bottom. His core suppression has to be taken super slowly. As the leader of the welfare team, he flips the script and makes work more dangerous for employees, making randomized damage types 5 times stronger. So basically, he just forces you to work with only baby abnormalities. This damage boost also has the kind of hilarious side effect of making dawn ordeals like the worms extremely dangerous, because now there's tons of extremely high damaging monsters in every hall of the facility that has to be dealt with at long range. He forces you to see the game in a completely new light, which I appreciate. And thankfully, doesn't force you to do 4 Violet Midnights back to back to back to back. When finished, Angela calls She said in no uncertain terms a loser. But after this, maybe she'll stop bullying him. And She said feels inspired to become one who's faithful and trustworthy, just like Carmen was. Before she was Gebra, she was Kali. Kali being the name of a Hindu goddess associated with time, death, and destruction. A name that could not be more accurate, as Kali here is a living legend, a color fixer known by all as the Red Mist. She's like 50 A-lifts packed all into one angry metal box. Kali was hired by Carmen to be the one to do the company's dirty work, to venture into the outskirts, and to protect the company in case anything goes wrong. And things did go wrong. After Michelle betrayed everyone and the head sent its claws and an arbiter down to put a stop to L-Corp's hijinks, the Red Mist fought like a champion, dicing 2 whole claws before being subdued by the arbiter. When it comes to raw power, arbiters are on a complete other plane of existence. Even though Kali was a living legend, she stood no chance whatsoever. But that doesn't mean she couldn't land a miraculous blow on the arbiter, saving A and B's lives while sacrificing her own. Now she's letting out all the hate and rage on her coworkers, and unfortunately, I'm one of those. To suppress Gebra, you have to take down the Red Mist. She's reawoken, and my god, does she hurt real bad. She also has this theme that sounds like two homeless people going at it in a metal dumpster full of cooking appliances, which has this weird quality to it where it sounds like garbage, but after like 2 weeks of listening to it on and off, I started seeing the vision. Like, do I like it? I genuinely don't know. We can all agree that the last phase theme goes crazy though, so I'm gonna put that here instead. The Red Mist is here to show our lowly agents how to truly wield ego, by beating them over their stupid foreheads with it. In her first phase, she'll use baby little egos like Skull Emoji or Spider Blob, which still hurt like hell for some reason, mixing in occasional freak charges where she uses Gold Rush to annihilate all the coworkers trying to make it to the next day. Like this clerk right here that I caught seconds before the moment of impact because I thought it was absolutely hysterical. She goes from 0 to 99 real fast by pulling out Aleph gear, Mimicry, and Decapo. Mimicry and Decapo hurt to get hit by, so my strat was to be uber safe and have melee damage users draw her aggro while ranged users peppered her from relative safety. It's not foolproof because occasionally she pulls out Burrowing Heaven's Spear and perforates an entire latitude's worth of gallbladders. She still does her Gold Rush thing to get to new rooms, but also breaks the laws of physics by throwing her Decapo and jumping after it through walls. On phase 3, she'll get fed up with her current weapons and throw them away. Something that shocked the hell out of me because they travel the entire width of the facility and do enough damage to instantly exsanguinate my entire beloved kill team. From there, she switches to Smile, which is more like its Roblox Item Asylum equivalent, and will tear you a new ass, and Judgment. This is a dangerous phase because both of these weapons are insane, so in order to beat them, use a more insane weapon that she doesn't have. That's right, splash your gooey, slimy bathwater all over her thighs, and watch in sheer horror as she unwraps Judgment and goes full anime Demon Slayer mode. When Judgment becomes Twilight, she'll begin blitzing through the facility, dicing everyone that crosses her path into literal red mist. Imagine being pulped so hard that your blood takes a gaseous form. That's the level of absurdity that this boss introduces. She sprints with the goal of killing one person marked with an eye, and when she reaches the room they're in, she'll do an imperceptibly fast flurry of slashes spanning the whole room before pausing to recuperate. Your only window of time for getting in a counterattack. She is a monster of a monster, and sadly, she can be cheesed pretty easily too. This boss is so much more fun and so much more fulfilling if you actually beat her once, so I recommend doing that to get the enjoyment out, before restarting the day and doing the cheese strat. To cheese the Red Mist, take an agent, put them in the shelter from the 27th of March, and wait for an hour and a half. I remember putting on a Markiplier video with German subtitles and playing the Nova Cream 31 card to hopefully have Lil Bro hop in to alleviate some of the pain of sitting there for 4 hours straight.
Squidward is real?
Squidward is real, and I'm killing myself in real life.
What? And it's all my fault.
Yeah, it is all your fault. You're gonna be on the note, fucker. The shelter will continually auto-breach all of your abnormalities, which means the Red Mist has to deal with all the A-lifts that you have. Shout out to Blue Star and Nothing There for being the only dudes to really do anything to her. Mio of the Rabbits team under R Corp also interestingly seemed to have some kind of history with the Red Mist. Though I think animosity is a better word for it, because she calls her a bitch. That's kind of weird because it's through one of Gebra's upgrades that we get into contact with R Corp and obtain access to the rabbits. But it's whatever. Not all coworkers have to like each other. After her suppression, she talks about how despite being hired to protect the original L Corp workers, she failed dramatically. And because of that, she has since been filled with rage and hate. But she didn't fail completely. She saved both A and B, referring to B as that other person. From this experience, she's given the courage to protect, and gives you yet another game-breakingly broken reward. With the reward, you can essentially double the amount of ego gear that you get from the abnormalities. That might not sound like much, but think about it. You've basically just doubled the size of your kill team. You doubled the amount of agents that won't get killed due to having weak gear. Actually busted. From here, we have the final 2 layers with the most hellish core suppressions. Unsurprisingly, the man in control of time and the woman sent by the head to kill everyone and put an end to L Corp shenanigans aren't easy boss fights. Before he was Hokma, he was B. Benjamin, one of the 3 core founders of Lobotomy Corporation. Benjamin meaning son of the right hand, being basically A's right-hand man. Benjamin was A's biggest glazer and the only other survivor of the Arbiter attack. Carmen was dead, and A was upset by that, not realizing that the Carmussi was limited edition. So he built an imitation of her, aided by Benjamin. Benjamin kept trying to warn A that building Angela was a huge mistake. And wouldn't you know it, after seeing Angela for the first time, A realized that this machine was nothing like Carbon. Brilliant. Hokuma's gimmick is probably my favorite just from a pure gameplay perspective. You're stuck on the standard game speed and you can't pause without sacrificing an agent. It wasn't until this suppression that I realized how much of a little bitch I was to the stop time mechanic. And this suppression really makes it clear how much you take it for granted. My favorite part about it though is that unlike the other time stop deniers, you can still stop time. You just have to weigh the risk of losing a valuable agent against the precious breathing room that a pause timer could grant. That's right, pausing time kills or panics one employee. The time stop becoming even more valuable the further down the Qliphotht counter you go, as Hokuma will force the natural game speed to double. Oh, and by the by, the suppression only ends when you get to meltdown level 10. You know what that means. Alright, here's what you have to do with the Violet Midnight without pausing at 2x speed. First, have everyone jump the Pale Pillar with all Pale damagers attacking the White Pillar. With sheer firepower, the Pale Pillar should get dropped pretty quick. Then, get your entire facility skewered by Blackthorns and realize that this isn't happening. Step 2, retry until you get a Green Midnight. Easy. I don't know why people keep complaining about the Midnight ordeals. It's so easy. Just press the dodge button. It's gonna take a while because the Helix at the end has like 3 billion health, but it's still not this. After the Midnight ordeal, the suppression is done, and we prove to Hokuma that we're strong enough to complete the script. Hokuma admits that the only reason why he did this was because he was afraid to face the end. Afraid that X would fly off into the unknown. So he decided it would be safest to keep things as they are now. He never wants to leave you. And before the cognition filter turns Hokuma into his robot form, you can see him briefly turn into Benjamin one last time. With a newfound determination to grant a proper end to everyone here, and to A, Hokuma becomes the I embracing the past, building the future. I guess that leaves just the one and only hardest core suppression. Bina is a bitch. Before she was Bina, she was Garion. The meaning, gelding, which is a castrated male horse. I looked for other possible meanings for this name, and it seems like it also means guardian. I'm not really sure. This name has its roots in Christianity rather than Judaism, which sets Garion apart from the rest of the L Corp employees. That makes sense since Garion was never even a part of the L Corp organization. Gelding was an arbiter, an assassin by the head whom they send to lay waste to people that break the taboos of the city, or fuck up anybody that could possibly threaten the head's superiority. When Hod, then Michelle, told the head about the monsters L Corp was growing, the head grew suspicious of them and sent Garion to destroy them. It's unknown why exactly the head wanted to destroy L Corp at that time. If I had to wager, they'd sense the monsters that L Corp was creating could have threatened the head's power. Regardless of the why, Garion came down, wrecked the place, and died in the surprise encounter with the red mist. A would then probe Garion's brain, extracting crucial information like becoming a wing and learning about the head. After that, using her to become the first Sephira, the mass murderer to coworker pipeline. People should not make an eye contact with the drawer. If you're wondering why there are pineapples on the screen right now, it's because I decided to put one up there whenever I died and had to restart the day. Bina's suppression is notorious because not only is it insanely hard, but it's also uncheesable. Yep, that immediately makes her hundreds of times more dangerous than every other fight in the game. She also sometimes just decides someone dies, so that's funny, and causes meltdowns of the facility that give her powers and breach abnormalities. I'm having fun right now, guys. Oh yeah, almost forgot. Until those meltdowns are dealt with, she's impervious to damage. Enjoy stupid. So yeah, she sucks. To make her unsuck, for one, put your kill squad in disciplinary. They'll start out close to extraction, but make sure you have a couple people in there to take care of the meltdowns. Next, have everybody that isn't on the kill squad in a containment unit at all times. Believe me, it is so much safer. Next, call the rabbits at the very start of the day. They'll get her through phase 1, and they'll also rightfully freak the fuck out that you called them on an arbiter. In phase 2, she'll do another facility sweeping meltdown attack that you'll have to get people into rooms for. If you can do this quick enough, you'll weaken her enough for the rabbits to down her second phase. Then, phase 3. The rabbits will all die, and that's okay. Her kill squad is stronger anyway. In phase 3, her immunities are all gone, so just kite your agents around attacks and jump her when she's trying to move to another place. Congratulations, you can now serve diced pineapple at your birthday party. You've now proven yourself to Bina. She sees now in you something new that she hadn't before. Something that reminds you of her. Firstly, that you're a sadist monster that smiles at gore, but more so, she admires your ability to ignore the path immediately ahead and set your sights on the future. 2 mutants of the generation. While Bina disagrees with A that anything will really change in the world, she understands now that if change could happen, it won't if they're just repeating the same cycle over and over again, and nobody changes anything about that. And she wants to see you try, with the eye facing the fear, breaking the cycle. And now, it's the end. The last 5 days. An absolute gauntlet of pain and irritable bowel syndrome. Angela, having gotten to the end of her script, is unceremoniously written out. Certainly the machine with a full set of human emotions that's done harder work than anybody else here won't feel resentful at all for being cast aside like this. From here on out, X begins grappling with mirrored versions of himself, each of which X will have to subdue before completing the script. The first being Abel. Abel is the name of the son of Adam and Eve, who killed his brother. He greets X and warns him about the agony he's about to go through. Yeah, sure is. The 45th day introduces white ordeals, fixers sent by the head as punishment for breaking the AI ethics amendment. They're only little baby fixers though, nowhere near the pay grade of the Red Mist, don't worry. The Red Fixer is a pseudo-cyborg man equipped with futuristic weaponry like a big laser blaster and a knife hand. He's not tough, but when he dies, he gets spiteful and shoots a massive laser in a conical area around him. What a dick. The White Fixer is the worst because she can't just be overwhelmed and sometimes makes an enormous death cloud that ruins everything. Mid-battle, she starts preying on thy downfall, reflecting all damage, which is really annoying when I just want to throw her into the kill squad meat grinder. The Black Fixer is unique in that she freaks out the abnormalities she's nearby, and occasionally makes her hammer scream, upsetting an entire department. Huh, that's pretty annoying. And the rarest is the Pale Fixer. Just some dude with a briefcase. I recognize the Squid Game reference. Just tell him that you don't have a Netflix account and watch as his manager honorably discharges him for not getting someone to pay for their shitty service. At midnight, things are ramped up as an executioner of C Corp is sent to ransack the corporation. The Claw. You've really fucked with the Head if they're sending this guy at you. The Claw is one of many super soldiers owned by the Head, using special serums to augment its abilities. With a good kill team, he should be whittled down in like 15 seconds, but problems arise when he starts marking your agents for death. When someone is marked for death, they'll get this spinning gear around them, after which the Claw will rush them at such a fast speed, he is literally a smudge on the screen. If you don't want your beloved children to be meat paste, send them into a containment unit and hope that he doesn't reach them first. This move is why you can't hide or keep everybody together, as seeing people get dropped instantly will cause your employees to panic, and that panicking leads to more panicking and more employees dropping. In short, the Claw is a total bitch and needs to be dealt with fortnight. The succession after beating day 45 pisses Abel off, who doesn't see a point in going on as he's never made it past this point. He wants X to just accept that nothing will change and that everything will continue to stay the same. He shows us an audio recording of Benjamin's death. If you'll remember earlier in the story when B called us, he was cut off before finishing his statement. It's revealed that the recording was cut off by none other than Angela. Neither Abel nor Benjamin in the story expected change, and to Angela, that wouldn't do. So she killed him, possibly mid-story, and turned him into a compliant machine in Hokma. Benjamin was going to offer an out before things got worse, not expecting that things would ever get better. And now Abel is beating over your stupid little head, the fact that you killed all your friends just to fail to achieve a goal. And normally this would be it. You're shown the door and walk away knowing you've ruined everything, but if you did the core suppressions, then you can use the lessons that your Sephira learned, that you can stand up straight, that you can be a better person, that you can keep living in spite of it all, that you can do whatever this means. If you completed the Asya suppressions, you can stick it to the old man and move on to day 46. This is when the trial truly begins. Day 45 exists only as a way to introduce you to new ordeals that you'll have to face from here on out, the white ordeals. You'll have to fight them in conjunction with, guess what? Every single Sephira per layer. Yay! This is more of Abel's suppression than anything else. You can see his thoughts and words on screen, just like in the other suppressions, when you could see their thoughts and words. This day sucks for 3 reasons. White ordeals, which can hurt a little bit. Breaking out the Malkuth pen and paper again, which hurts a lot. And then, Hod. Oh my god. Hod. In her previous suppression, she drops your stats little by little. It's really not so bad. Nothing that can't be fixed with the funny machine. But on day 46, Hod does the equivalent of rip every agent's arms and legs off, cut them in half, hand them a pair of chopsticks, and tell them to fist fight a grizzly bear. Something you can't do because you took my hands. Not even the happiness machine can undo the damage that she causes unless you forfeit to chance and let it go for 30 seconds. Half the time you'll get an agent that is just as good as they were before the hardening, and the other half the time they become a toaster strudel. You know it's horrible when even Zayn and Teths are actually killing level 5 agents. Oh, by the way, don't forget those white ordeals, smile. Do worry, it doesn't get better. The next shard of A we have to look at is Abram, which is the original name for Abraham. Abraham was the first ever person to believe in one God. He was the original monotheist. Abram believes that the suffering that he's inflicted on himself and others cannot be overcome, constantly mulling over the past with Carmen. He dreams of her, proposing the idea of the seed of light, of lying with her in the grass and talking. He's constantly reminded of finding her in that bathtub. How he yoinked her nervous system and put it into a tank after being told to Spider-Man Elsa herself by Lisa. This is Carmen. Here in this tank, she's a fountain of cogito, now a mother to every abnormality in this facility, the bucket with which they're withdrawn. Abram talks about the process to become a wing, how many awful things A had done, probing through Garion's brain for information, reincarnating his friends to suffer the same pain every day, killing employees to create more energy. Now A lives in this cyclical hell for his own atonement. But just like with Abel, X uses what he's learned from Bria Sephiroth to get past Abram. Carmen never would have wanted A to stagnate and wallow in his misery like Abram. Everyone wholeheartedly trusts A, even long after Carmen's death. By the way of the indomitable human spirit, Abram steps aside and lets us go to day 48. Ooh boy, this one's rough. It's the same song and dance with every Bria core suppression. I genuinely have no idea what Tifrith does besides force me into a Violet Midnight, but hey, I'm not forced to go to Meltdown level 10, and even if I was, I'd only have to fight the Claw. I love how genuinely busted Violet Midnight is, that this late game super enemy is actually the preferred outcome. Phantom She Said is here to whittle down your agents with the help of color fixers, taking them from damn, these enemies suck, to oh my god, the white fixer just blew her load and half the solar system went insane. Wait, I'm forgetting something. Okay, so the red mist reawakens at Meltdown level 5, ready to take apart your weakened facility. Same old song and dance for her. Also, I like that doing it this way kind of makes the red mist sort of uncheesable, as you'll have to use solid agents to make it this far in the day, and switching gears to have someone camp in the shelter will definitely lead to some nugget death. Just deal with the red mist like a man, and remember that in her phase transition from 2 to 3 has that massive horizontal hitbox because fuck your agents. When in doubt, squirt it out. Also, the red mist is at like 40% health, and She Said stops doing anything when she spawns. I think the health drop that drastic isn't necessary, but oh well, I guess it's nice that they're having at least a little bit of mercy on us. This to me is the most fun fight in the entire game, by the way. After watching the red mist pulp your beloved baby doll collection, you're taken to Adam. Adam is the first human created by God. Here he's a maniac that's convinced he's found the answer, releasing the seed of light unfinished, turning every human being into an abnormality. They are our truer forms after all, the human subconscious manifested into creatures. Would it not be a wonderful world if everybody revealed their truest form? Is that a fucking Kezu horse? This is the smartest, most powerful version of A X has to get through. Adam didn't understand what Carmen's goal was. Carmen wanted to give everyone light, to give them all purpose. But Adam realized that people can never have a purpose, as long as the head and its wings were constantly instating its will. To live is an endless struggle to be a feather in the wings. But if everyone was an abnormality, everybody could be their truest, rawest self. That way they couldn't be controlled by the wings. The wings couldn't use their singularities on the populace anymore. Humankind would finally reach its final state by becoming crab, monkey, fish, or whatever other perfect being is out there. Adam doesn't realize that what Carmen really wanted was to give everyone the light so that they could find their own purpose. So X answers, determined to break the cycle, with eyes that face the fear and eyes that build the future. And before moving on to Adam's challenge, we get brief words by someone upset that they won't be in the finale of this play. Who cares? It's probably nothing. Time for the hardest challenge in this entire godforsaken video game. Day 49. Pokemon and Bina are here to disable foundational game mechanics and kill everybody in sight. And this one day took me so many attempts. I'm afraid I don't have the amount counted, it was like 3 streams in the making. At twitch.tv/PakPak, please, I am so lonely. Here's what you do so it doesn't take 5 years. Have your whole kill squad in the bottommost layer, Keter. Keter is the crown and is the source of all delight and pleasure. You will also take delight in knowing that the Keter layer is completely immune to Bina meltdowns, so you don't have to care at all when you send your kill squad towards the evil spiny tropical plant. We still have white ordeals, which suck bad. The Arbiter spawns at meltdown level 5, and if you get a noon ordeal at that time, just restart. It's nowhere near worth it. Once you have your kill squad stationed just outside of the extraction team before meltdown 5, assign 1 person per containment unit and send them to stand outside. The Arbiter has this big wave attack that happens per person. So if all 5 people are in one room, then 5 people will get hit by 5 waves. It's not worth it. Once she's spawned, pause the game and sacrifice an agent. While paused, send every person into their assigned containment unit. And if you see the agent that's panicking from the pause, just kill them. They're not worth the headache. Phase 2 was what really got me down bad. She had so many new moves that were just ridiculous and kept killing people and breaching abnormalities. I was so lost until I decided to try an abnormality that hadn't seen a lot of use until now. The backwards clock is an absolute game changer. I would put it in S++++ tier, but I can't find it on the list. I think it teleported away. I cannot believe this fight has a literal win button. After no-selling phase 2, in phase 3, do the same thing where you sacrifice 1 pawn to Crazy Land and have every agent go to their assigned containment unit. After double, triple, and quadruple checking that every meltdown was dealt with, Bina becomes not completely immune to all damage, and you can just focus solely on dropping her. After putting the hate fruit down, the game is finally over, and as it would turn out, A was the last Sephira that needed closure. As through the final suppression, the Seed of Light is completed, and we can finally meet the true A. This is Ayin. Ayin meaning nothingness. The concept of nothingness in Kabbalah, where the Sephiroth came out of being. He states the plan is to sow the seeds of light in the hearts of everyone in the world, so that they can choose what they want to do with the gift of life. Ayin then invites us, the manager, to our final day managing the abnormalities. In a beautifully artsy and slightly nonsensical turn of events, the whole facility inverts and becomes a proper tree of life. Something that I noticed on stream and popped the fuck off about, even though nobody really cared. Everyone's upside down, beautiful music is playing, and after sending Ball Blender into work with Censored one final time, we can now finally lean back and appreciate what we've created. All those fails, all those deaths, all those salty nights staying up and thinking about how annoying that choo-choo train is, it's finally time for us to set down the script and step down from the stage. The play is over. The tree of light planted, and it's time for Ayin to fade away without a trace. With the great pillar of light shining into the sky, people felt found, like their life had purpose. It filled their hearts with light and joy. Something to finally feel at peace about. Humanity was saved. And then Angela happened. So yeah, as it turns out, the android assistant with full human emotion, having experienced over 1 million years worth of thankless nannying, some Sigma grinders trial and errors, will get real upset when he won't even be bothered to notice her at the end of this metaphorical script. Angela, with now no chain to tether her to her android assistant life, hits the jongleur smile, and becomes Bird. Sensational. She wants to experience life as something other than an android. She will cut down the Tree of Light, leaving humanity with incomplete seeds, so she can study the chaos that ensues. Now the ending is looking more like Adam's ending. Ending the Tree of Light in 3 days instead of 7 created a chaotic world, one that she would gather all the knowledge of and arrange into books. Angela wants to create a library, and following Lobotomy Corp, Project Moon would go on to make Library of Ruina, where all our favorite guys and gals will return. In what state they return in, I really don't know. I haven't played Library of Ruina. I fucking plan to, because Lobotomy Corp, as you all should know by now, is amazing, even if it gave me kidney stones. I need to get my love for games that make me hate my life checked out before it goes too far. Ein dissolved his body into the Seed of Light alongside the manager, and I must also go and dissolve into a giant beam of light. So I'll leave you, the viewer, with my parting thoughts. 1, thank you so much for watching this far in the video. It does wonders in the algorithm, and I'm sure it was a nightmare of formatting to watch through with Lobotomy Corporation's nature, where you can, approach obstacles and bosses as you go whenever you feel like it. Translating that to video, especially this type of video, it's like it might come off a little scattershot or weird when I talk about what. I'm trying to make more of my content feel unique or me. Second thing, the editing for some parts of this video might seem pretty rushed. I gave myself only 1 month to edit this thing like an absolute moron. And editing a 3.5-hour video as a one-person team isn't easy. But I think despite that, I really like how this video turned out. I love Lobotomy Corporation, and I hope you guys do too. I'm sure there's problems here and there in the video, like not researching a name correctly or mispronouncing something or just getting lore wrong, and I apologize for that if I did. And if I did, then leave a comment correcting me. I love learning about this stuff. Third, if you want to support me and the channel more directly, you can go to pakdrop.shop. That's right, I'm doing merch now. Everything in the store will be available from now until the new year, so if you like birds, then go take a look. There will be a link in the description. And lastly, join the Hot Mind. Resistance is futile.